across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yeah, welcome back. Thank you to Alex, by the way. It is the home of common sense. So much to get through. We are going to talk about Labour's plan for a 3p per mile EV levy from 2028, stinging up to 6 million drivers for about 250 quid a year, while petrol drivers already pay around 600 in fuel duty. Hybrids pay less, no mass tracking is promised, but the Treasury still expects 1.8 billion by 2031 in return as fuel duty receipts plunge. It's just another tax grab dressed up as some kind of green fairness. And should you be worried about getting tracked? We'll have more on that. Also, 700 police officers are going to be on patrol, it looks as if, this evening around the Villa ground. We'll give you more details on that. And Prevent is at record highs. Those that are reported to Prevent are at record highs, with 8,778 referrals. Extreme right-wing concerns rose by 37%, and now outstrip Islamist cases. But the system is bogged down in referrals from schools and councils, mental health overlaps, and a lot of box ticking going on there as well. We'll give you the full details throughout the course of the programme. 0344 499 1000. There's a couple of general questions, by the way, around the issue of EVs, generally speaking. I'm going to ask the broadest question, by the way, because you do see more of these things on the road. I went for a dog walk this morning, and I think I probably saw more EVs than I saw petrol or diesel cars in one little kind of snapshot area. Are you an EV convert? I'm going to ask that question as an obvious start to this, because we are going to talk about the future of driving on this, and is pay per mile the future of driving? But if you are someone who's recently converted to EVs, did you get one and go, this is the biggest piece of old tosh I ever bought and I regret every bit of it? Or are you one of those that had a kind of epiphanous moment, as soon as you sat and turned on the engine or the battery and realised the sound of silence was all around you, and that smooth, glide-like journey went from A to B in a very quiet, effortless manner? And you enjoy charging it on your driveway, etc. Bit of a problem if you live on the 78th floor of a tower block, but you take the point. 0344 499 1000. So, but in terms of pay per mile, because we understand that the budget will announce a pay per mile tax, as it were. These are current plans to be announced by the Chancellor November the 26th. Stick it in your diary. We'll bring you the whole thing live here on Talk. Drivers of electric vehicles will be charged 3p per mile on top of other road taxes. Now, this is the first time, as I understand it, we've had any kind of per mile taxation. Set to kick off in 2028. There's going to be obviously some consultations. Don't let that stop it, because it will still happen. It means the average EV driver will face an extra 250 quid a year. Still far less, by the way, than you would pay if you were driving a petrol or a diesel car, where it's an average of £600 a year in fuel duty alone. The Treasury will make the move amid falling fuel duty revenues, of course, since people converted to EVs. There's no road tax to pay, and you're not paying any tax on the fuel you purchase. They will also argue that it's different from traditional pay-per-mile schemes, with a fee taken each year on estimated travel, so there's no mass electronic monitoring of your movements. Can we add the word yet into that? And can we also expand it to all cars at some point going forward? I mean, the story is bigger than just a little bit of taxation on your electric vehicle, isn't it? The story does naturally gravitate to tracking and the ability to work out how you go from A to B. And even if it's not done with a device on your car, but the entire AI world of digital cameras, and God knows we've got enough of those things around, the infrastructure is well in place. That's only a matter of time, isn't it? so that the government know where you're going, how far you go, where you stop, who you visit, that kind of thing. It's not a conspiracy, by the way. I'm not arguing it from that perspective, but I am arguing it from a privacy point of view, that you can see that being the kind of future of where stories such as this go. 0344 499 1000. Let's get your overall view on pay per mile. Your overall experience on driving an EV. Buyer's remorse, or are you jubilant and still popping the champagne? Of course, you won't be driving anything soon because your car will be driverless. You can just sit in the boot, if you like, and just nip out whenever you get there. Lines are open on that. You can, of course, voice note us as well on the same number, 0344 499 1000. And if you want to send a message, start your message with the word talk to 87222. Let's get a word on this and the other big stories of the day. Peter Barnes is back with us, political strategist and political contributor to Hinton magazine. Good afternoon to you, Peter. Can you hear us, Peter? You can hear us. We can't hear you. We might have a mute situation going on there. But while we line Peter back up, we will return with him in just a second. Let's just remind everybody, Rachel Reeves's budget could see 3p per mile levy by 2028. Now, it's worth having a little listen here to one of the transport ministers, Lillian Greenwood, who spoke about how the EV world is a saving money scheme. Have a listen.
We want electric cars to be more affordable. That price gap is coming down all the time, and this discount is there to help people to make that switch. That's what we want. We want people to be able to choose an electric vehicle. People who have chosen an electric vehicle, over 90% of them say they never go back.
Yeah, they never go back, apparently. Peter, I mean, that was when she was talking about some kind of little sweetener they were giving people a few months back to buy an electric car. This was always coming, wasn't it? Some way of charging EV drivers for something that the Treasury, in fairness, had lost millions over.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're looking at 30 billion in fuel duty losses over the entire time it was frozen. It's rather crazy numbers if you think about it. But you're so right that the kind of the caterpillar of the green revolution has just turned into the butterfly that's costing me a lot of money. Because let's be real, that's what this is. This is the moment the government stops pretending this is about the environment or net zero or anything like that. It is a money machine, and everybody's known that the motorist has been the Treasury's main goal as a cash machine. That's what they've been after for a very long time, and now they've got their hands on it. And I thought you were so right when you, in your intro there, Ian, when you said yet. You know, there'll be no mass tracking yet. This is the big thing with this government. It's a whole load of preparation. Everything is moving in one direction. It's not mission creep. It's the mission. It's just going slowly. People keep confusing that. But, you know, I look at what Edmund King, one of the people involved at the AA, I think he's leading it now, he said, this is the poll tax on wheels, because I do think he's right here, because this is going to really cause a big moment of people saying, well, wait a minute, you told me to get a green kind of car, but not so long ago you told me to get a diesel car because they were better for the environment. Which is it? You know, there is the entire kind of backing and the you know, the academics behind this and all the rest of it are simply not there, because it's about money and it's about making money. More importantly, I do think this is actually the Treasury panicking because they need money and they don't know where to get it from, because they don't know how to make growth if their life depended on it, and unfortunately our lives depend on it. This is a whole load of problems when we look at it in the greater scheme for the economy, because it is yet again, it is a tax on productivity. It's a tax on you going somewhere, doing things. When we want to talk about how we strangle growth, this is in the top 10, if not the top 5. It is ridiculous. I always talk about the country as a kind of body, and the transport network is our arteries. It's how we move things around. This gives us clogged arteries. It's not good, and it needs to be reversed. And you are right, there's going to be this consultation period, but we all know that's for show, because the decision's already been made, the programs are already in place, the cameras and all the rest of it are already there, and it's just a matter of flicking a switch and turning it on.
And it's also worth just throwing in, Peter, that this idea that the government make nothing from electric cars is not true, because a few people have pointed out that British EV drivers already pay the highest electricity prices in the world. So every time you charge up your car, the government are trousering an amount of money from that in taxation, because the electricity companies are earning money. So it's not entirely out of pocket.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons that you don't mess with fuel prices as a government, because you see the fuel price, you feel it every single time you go to fill up your car. This time, how you're really getting taxed when you have a green car is via your monthly electric bill. You think that's the thing that soared through the roof because of things like the lights or the oven or stuff like that. You don't really think of your car as being the one because of the way it's been marketed to you, because of the way the government has sold this to you. You don't think it's that, but actually, like I said, instead of it being at the pump, it's now at the plug. And, you know, unfortunately, as I say, I say fortunately, really, the mask has slipped, if not been revealed, and here we are. This is the truth that a lot of people have been banging on about for a long time. And one of the things I don't like about Pay Per Mile is they could tell me where I can and can't go. They now have a greater sense of being able to track you, and you're controlling your movements. So they can control your access to services, they can control your access to education, they control your access to doctors and things like that. And now they can control where you can and can't go and track the people that you see. This is part of a much bigger plan, and it's not a conspiracy. It's already
It's not
in
a conspiracy,
place.
and you know, I don't suggest it's some kind of, you know, overlord that is tracking us for, you know, some sort of David Icke-like interpretation. It doesn't have to be that. It's about our relationship with the government, and I think if the government are surveilling you in various places in certain ways, as citizens, we have a right to get the full information. It should be an open book. We should know what's going on, and we should be able to test and agitate and argue against mass surveillance, because that's exactly what that would be. I think in a healthy first world democracy, we should be concerned
without
about
a doubt. The advantage we have is the fact that this government couldn't find us, is we have a big arrow sticking over our head saying, I'm over here. I mean, I looked at the fact that it took the public to find the Epping Forest, the migrant who got released from prison, and the other two that they've only just realised went missing. So we have all these cameras and all these things, but it's being run by very incompetent people. So that's the one silver lining, if you want to try and find one, is that they could try and find you. They couldn't if their life depended on it.
Let's move to this story, Pete. This, of course, is the big football match this evening. More than 700 police will be deployed in Birmingham today as Maccabi Tel Aviv play Aston Villa. This, of course, taking place at Villa Park. Large protests, counter-protests are expected with extra ticket checks, rail policing, nearby schools closing early. I think the airspace above the stadium is closed off. Man, what is going on here? Let's have a listen to the lawyer and activist Ahmed Yaqub, who was speaking on Talk earlier on, by the way. He's had a lot to say about this, and he's one of the people behind the protest. Here he is.
6th of November, it's game over for Maccabi Tel Aviv and Israel. Protesters are coming from all over the UK peacefully. We're going to protest with our families and let people know the frustration that we have. Israel should not be in FIFA. There's over 30 organizations that are involved, and the numbers are going to be huge.
Absolutely. My message to those right-wing extremists and the barbaric Israeli supporters who are supporting Maccabi Tel Aviv, that the city of Birmingham and moreover Aston is the home of lions.
Lions, and we will not just remain silent when genocidal complicits come in and play football in our city. Remember that. I urge all the youth to be peaceful and not to cover their faces on that day. We want to send a clear message of peace and justice.
Birmingham is united against Israel. Okay, game over for Israel on 6th of November.
Remember that.
Game over.
Game over.
Wow, this sounds like a threat. That's professional half-wit and lawyer Ahmed Yaqub, Pete. That's what he thinks. I mean, it's just, you just sort of think to yourself, hang on, where am I living at the moment? These people live among us? What's going on? You're not coming round our manor because we don't like Israel very much.
Yeah, isn't it interesting how it started off with a safety thing because of the fans, and then it was about protecting the public, and now it's we don't like Israel. Did anybody notice the slow progression and the fact that they don't seem to care that they've changed the language? That's the disturbing bit. They're now just saying it out loud. And do you know what's more concerning is the police still have this in their heads that it's their job to ensure the right to protest. This is where you look at the statement that they released. They said, we've got to balance the rights of protesters and the football match and all this kind of stuff. That's not their job. The fundamental job of the police is to protect what they call the king's peace. That is order on the streets. It is not their job to ensure a protest happens. That's not their job. They keep wandering into this political territory, which they're not equipped to do, and they don't understand by the sounds of it. And then the next thing you know, they all blows up in the face like this has. I find it interesting that Starmer said he was going to move heaven and earth, and the entire state was going to make sure this game was going to go ahead and the fans could come. Yeah. That doesn't seem to have happened. So Starmer yet again has been shown to be completely useless. We also know that if Starmer's getting involved, this isn't a terrorist threat. This isn't a mass security threat, because then you've got to say that the Prime Minister is actively putting people in harm's way. That would be the logical argument, and that's not the case. So the fundamental problem really at the heart of this is this SAG group. So when people blame the police, but they take their direction really from this organisation, which is made up of lots of different factors, and they were started after Millwall. They're actually not a bad idea at the beginning. But then, you know, this being British bureaucracy, we gave it incredible power, but no accountability. We don't know who's on SAG. We don't know who said what. We don't know, was there any dissent? And more importantly, if it's not followed, Aston Villa could lose their licence. They could be held liable. Yet we have no right to know any of this. That's the real, one of the real bits of this story. Obviously, we have this horrific case of what I call anti-Jew hate. Let's call it for what it is. These people are horrific, and I don't understand why this is like been allowed to happen. Well, unfortunately, I know how it has, but why it has is another reason. But it's just obscene to me. This Yaqub figure, though, people keep thinking he's some kind of agitator. He's not. I'm comparing him really in my head to like a war profiteer. In other words, he's operating in the situation. He's not instigating the situation. There's lots more powerful forces at play on the streets of Britain agitating this stuff, and they tend to be from foreign actors, I name Iran being the main one, who are funding this movement, who are funding this propaganda war. The Hamas propaganda war internationally is astounding, and we're seeing the consequences of it now, because we haven't been strong enough about taking down the radical preachers. We've not been strong enough on the Muslim community to actually challenge their extremist elements. We don't go anywhere near mosques like we really need to, and unfortunately this is where you end up. When we have a soft touch, you end up with people taking more than an inch, they take 10 miles, and bad actors follow in their wake who do real damage, because this is what's really on show tonight when these protests happen. Sectarian politics is here in Britain yet again.
You only have to look at some of the images we're showing on screen for those who are watching on our visual feed. I mean, you've got the Palestinian flag being erected on lampposts. You've got no ball games and all sorts of other, frankly, slightly dubious slogans that are here. But this is intimidation in another language. I mean, it's beyond extraordinary that this is the United Kingdom. This is where you want your leader to come out in a kind of almost a Trump style and go, no, sorry, doesn't work like that, guys. We don't do that kind of stuff. It's the UK. Israel are an ally. Whatever you think of Israel, might not have always covered themselves in glory during recent. We understand that. We don't do this. We don't ban football clubs because somebody who, frankly, favours a medieval regime and death cult governments in other parts of the world. We don't do that. And if you come out onto the streets tonight, we're going to water cannon you into Wolverhampton. So stay at home. This is not the UK. Starmer won't say any of that because, number one, he hasn't got the balls to say stuff like that. And number two, he's currently having a pina colada on a beach in Brazil while Eduardo gives him a foot massage. So that's the problem we have. We got no leadership on this kind of stuff, and I don't think under this government we ever will. Peter, stay with us. We've got more to say on this and the other big stories. I want your comments. If you're a Villa fan, I want to hear from you. And interestingly, and there's clearly going to be fans out there of Maccabi Tel Aviv. All ears at this end, 0344 499 1000. You're not allowed to go, by the way. Lines are open on all of this. EVs, paper mile. We've got the whole lot going on here. It's the home of common sense, kids. Lines are open. This is Talk. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
A lot of response on EVs. We'll come to those in a second. By the way, didn't they bring in... have I imagined this? Isn't there... I know they lost a lot of revenue when you bought an electric car, you didn't pay road tax. Didn't they address that? Didn't they introduce road tax quite recently? Somebody can put us right. If you're an EV driver, you will know. We have Peter Barnes with us, the political strategist, looking at the big stories of the day. Let's move to this one, Peter. It is, of course, the former hotel manager who claimed that some residents at a Manchester asylum site vandalised room, dealt drugs, and even boasted of murder. He says one man was expelled from 5 hotels for groping and dealing. Others misused free taxis, and some treated the system like a holiday. Let's have a listen to one clip. This is from the manager's interview that he did with our own Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Here it is.
I said, "Are you okay?" He's like, no, I'm sad. I was like, why? He goes, I miss my home country. I was like, you're Kurdish, yeah, Kurdistan. He was like, yeah. I was like, well, why did you leave Kurdistan? Because we all spoke to him. We all wanted a reason of why have you come here?
Yes.
And he was going, he was thinking, one day he goes, I had an argument with my wife. I'd been drinking heavily. He said, I killed her. He says, killed her with my hands. And he goes, and then, yeah, I didn't want to get caught, so I had to leave the country, and I'm here.
Yeah, I don't think that's usually grounds for refugee status, frankly. Peter, I mean, this just sort of feeds into the mess of our asylum system, right? And it's another, I mean, people say, well, these are anecdotes, but frankly, you know, a certain amount of anecdotes does make datum, so, you know, perhaps there is, does make data, rather. So perhaps there is, you know, stories such as this, which should be taken more seriously by our authorities, by the police, by the government.
Yeah, well, it's actually the response from the Home Office to Isabel's brilliant investigation and her piece here, where they said they were starting blaming talkTV for not giving them enough information about the incident and all the rest of it, and enough time. I was sad there. I saw this response. I was like, you should have already know this. They are actively ignoring so many red flags because they can't process quick enough. There's so many people. The entire system is overwhelmed, and these instances are just so obvious now because the government, when they got into power, got rid of the rules, basically, that the Conservatives brought in, where if you got rid of your documentation, if you didn't have documentation, you weren't getting anything. And that actually did have a little bit of an effect in terms of the kind of temptation for people to come here. Unfortunately, as per usual, the Labour Party dropped it because it was just a gimmick. Well, you talk about gimmicks, that's all this government is. And yet, the numbers just continue to rise and rise and rise, and more violent and deadly people are now on the streets of Britain. And more importantly, the framework still exists to keep them here. So, yes, we have a problem with processing and the numbers and stopping the boats and that. But when they get here and we let them out in the general population, we don't know who they are. We're putting them next to schools and old people's homes and all these places with very vulnerable people in them. And then we are so shocked every time this happens. At what point do we start to say, enough? Though I keep saying that word every time this issue comes up, but it's just something else, and it's something else. Because realistically, the government doesn't have a clue what it's doing. It hasn't got the backbone to do what's necessary. It hasn't got the kind of political will to kind of corral anything like that. So it's just going to continue. And unfortunately, more people are going to end up like that poor man walking his dog, stabbed for helping somebody. In a situation, we're going to end up with more girls, more women under threat, more people in the LGBT community under threat. This is how you get the instances that are happening in Birmingham. You import people. Well, I hate to break it to all the kind of hug a refugee people, but they don't leave their barbaric attitudes at Calais, do they? They bring them with them. They bring this to us. There's a reason that Britain is now one of the top places that you can be a victim of an acid attack. How? How does the Metropolitan Police have a forced marriage unit? How do we have no-go zones? It's because of this. It's because we don't have a grip on it. And we don't have a grip on integration. That's the real key one. So the numbers, yes, not great. But what we do when people get here is just horrific. And it is the people that are paying the price. And it is a deadly price.
Yeah, powerful stuff, Pete. Thanks for that. Let's go to this story. Highest ever number of referrals to the Prevent programme we're hearing. Prevent referrals hit a record 8,778 in the year to March. That's up 26% from 6,900. Extreme right-wing concerns were 21%. That's a rise of 1,798, rising 37%. Surpassing Islamist extremism, 10%, which is down from the previous year. Now, look, facts are facts and all the rest of it. I get that. But I do concern myself, bearing in mind a lot of this is down to teachers and people like that reporting things, certainly reporting kids who they think might be mixed up with, the wrong company or bizarre opinions. Whenever I see the phrase that right-wing concerns have gone through the roof, I do question where the data came from originally.
And that's the key question. You have to look at this data like we look at hate crime legislation. If you go looking for a problem, you're going to find it. And if you have a very broad definition of the terminology, you're definitely going to find even more of it. And that's what this data really is. However, I go back to Jonathan Hall, who looked at the terrorism legislation after the Southport incident. It was one of the many inquiries that we've had and is still ongoing. And actually, he came back, and it was one of the key things. And yet it wasn't taken. It was released in end of October, and it was basically saying that it's not ideology, it's violence. We have a problem of uncontrolled violence. Yeah. Now, the motivation behind it is very important, but we still have, no matter whether he's right-wing or an Islamic terrorist or whatever, violence. Because if you actually look at the data, no ideology is the majority of the cases. So we could play tit-for-tat politics if we like, or we could try and stop something. This is what I find really annoying about this country. We're a risk assessment without the follow-through. We like to do the paperwork, we like to argue about something, and then when it gets to the implementation of it, we stop. And then we go argue about something else because we don't like to do the hard work. Because unfortunately on this one, the hard work means tackling some really big issues, and the key one that nobody else is talking about, it's the economy. The economy creates the breeding ground for radicalization. You throw in identity politics, you throw in things like social media, and the narrative's being turned up to 11, and here you are. Yeah. You end up with a state and a nation that is tearing itself apart because everybody's angry at each other and nobody really knows why. And because nobody really thinks that, oh yes, if you don't have a job, if you don't have a purpose, if you're living on welfare, if you're feeling isolated and then victimized, well, of course you're going to move to an ideology that suddenly thinks you're not to blame. Yeah. Because unfortunately, this country doesn't like to take accountability of itself. We demand it from everybody else, never from ourselves. And to really tackle the issue of it, on all of it, one, scrap Prevent. I tell you right now, you want to learn how not to do policy? Prevent is it. It is run by the stupidest people I think are in government, and they should not be anywhere near it. The fact Michael Stewart I think that was his name, got to walk away with a pension and a pack on his back after Southport was still reeling from that brutal attack is a crime in itself. Yeah. Why is nobody fired? But there we are. Do not get me started on Prevent. I could sit and do the rest of your show on it, Ian. I really could.
Well, maybe we should do. We'll pencil one in for the new year, maybe. Peter, always good to have you on. Thank you, Peter Barnes, political strategist scientist with us here on the programme. Over to you on all of those stories. Football at Villa, or lack of. More protests than football, frankly. Obviously, what's happening with the sex offender on the run. Still haven't caught him. The other fella at least had the good sense to hand himself in. The issue you've just heard there about Prevent, and key question is pay per mile, the future of driving. And how are you finding your EV, by the way? 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
There's a lot of talk on EVs this afternoon. This one comes in from Dave in Manchester. Reference pay per mile. I love my EV, but I'm afraid I'm going to go back to diesel. If you compare running costs on Google, if you can't charge at home, there's no great difference in running costs. I work away from home, so I have to use public chargers, so I don't save anything. Decisions made. I'm going back to diesel where I can get my fuel off-site. So forget saving the planet. I'm thinking of saving my pocket as I'm being taxed to death, which will only get worse. I mean, there is the problem, isn't it? This came from RJP, who says, have I got this right? Rachel Reeves' philosophy. If it moves, tax it. If it doesn't move, tax it. If it's already taxed, tax it more. If it's not yet taxed, remove the exemption. But I think you probably got that about right. Let's continue on this. We'll talk to Jordan in a minute, who knows all about EVs and is a big fan, supporter of. First, Simon Forthrop, Conservative Councillor, Pettswood, Knoll Ward, London Borough of Bromley. Good afternoon to you, Simon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Nice to see you again.
Nice to have you with us again too. So here we are. It's the 3p per mile electric vehicle levy coming to a EV car near you in the next 24 months. What are you making of this?
Well, first of all, let me confess something. I'm a converted sinner in that I was an EV owner and I'm now no longer an EV owner.
So you went the other way. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because
What
'cause
happened?
actually, well, basically the economics didn't stack up. So you just, most people actually go with their pocket, not necessarily with the environment. They don't mind wanting. I think most people probably want to do something good by the environment, but at the same time, it's got to pay, hasn't it? So, but lots went wrong, and I ended up here, with a petrol car instead, much more flexible, etc., etc. So, what went wrong in terms of this and pay per mile? Well, as you know, when Mayor Khan was having his last election campaign, he had to rule out pay per mile because I had a video that went viral pointing out that he'd be charging £2 per mile if he had his way. And of course, this is what it's all about. It's now about, it's not just about, we need to raise some taxes. I mean, there's far better ways to do it. Why pay per mile? Why not just increase the amount of car tax that you pay? That would be a logical way to do it. What's the bureaucracy behind all of this? How are people, people buy cars, don't they? And they change them halfway through the year. So you're halfway through the tax year, you're meant to guess it and then pay up halfway through the year. And who's going to police this? And are the courts going to be clogged with people going through pay per mile? This just has, I'm not sure who thought it out, but clearly, clearly a Labour Party member, I would guess, but that's about as far as I can go.
I mean, they're talking about sort of making up the shortfall, aren't they? Because, for a long time, I think it changed this year, but for a long time you didn't pay any tax, of course, on an electric car. That was one of the sweeteners that, this was, incredible. You no longer, especially if you drove a slightly bigger vehicle where they're looking for 400, 500, 600 quid on your tax. And then, of course, you've got the tax you pay on fuel as well. So for many people, if you charge at home, it seemed like a no-brainer to go the EV route, but of course gradually there is a real sense that those savings are almost cancelled out. And Dave, our previous contributor from Manchester, said that actually if you use external charging points, it doesn't really make it much cheaper to drive an EV.
No, and that's what I found when I had an EV. And let's be honest, the problem with pay per mile, I just wanted to deal with this because it is quite dangerous. It's actually not really about pay per mile. It's ultimately about control, ultimately about surveillance, and this all fits in with the digital ID and all the rest of it, the way that the government is going, and you can see where they're going. And they'll be saying, oh, hang on a sec, you went to the cinema last night. That isn't a really sort of righteous journey, so we can't let you do that. You're going to be charged double for that or treble for that. And you can see what it's about. There's so many simple ways of doing this if they want to increase tax. We know it's a Labour government. We know they want to increase tax. Well, fair enough. They've been elected. Let them get on and do with it. But why all this messing about? Because it's the thin ends of the wedge. We know, or people like me who've been involved in it, we know that ultimately it's about surveillance. Ultimately, it's about tracking what people do. And actually, of course, the price will go up and up and up and up over the years as they do it, and decide what journeys are good and what journeys are bad.
Yeah, there is the concern. It's a reasonable concern to have. If your government is coming in with legislation, it's down to us and politicians like yourself, Simon, to scrutinise and to call it out and to raise concerns. And if those concerns are unfounded, great, they can explain why, and if they're not, then we have another debate. Simon, lovely to have you on again, sir. Thank you, Simon Forthrop, who's the Conservative councillor over there in the London Borough of Bromley. Let's speak to Jordan, known as the EV guy across socials. There's nothing Jordan doesn't know about an electric vehicle. I'm sure there were parts of our last conversation, Jordan, you might have been laughing along thinking that's not true, that's not going to happen. But it's reasonable we do raise concern. If a government comes along and goes, hey, I've got a new tax, then we should rightly question that.
Absolutely, I was smiling away. It's always interesting hearing the tinfoil hat conspiracies and the myths that are out there, and I spend a lot of my time debunking a lot of these myths on social media. My day job is consulting on EV sustainability within businesses, but my passion and a hobby is social media and posting content and debunking a lot of these things.
That can send you mad, because I do a similar thing as well. I look through some of that guff and think, oh my God. And it can drive you nuts, because some of it is funny, but other bits of it make you quite angry, don't they, when somebody has got such an outlandish belief in something. But there might be because I did say earlier about the pay per mile thing. I mean, this new proposal isn't about tracking. There'll be a set fee you're that you will pay 250 quid or something based on sort of average mileage. However, there is an understandable concern that if you wanted to do pay per mile, the most efficient way a government could do it and probably earn more money out of it is through tracking. Now, it might not be because there's some big old plan that David Icke is telling us is going to, the overlords are going to be controlling our lives. You can't eat lamb chops. You can't go to the cinema. It might not be that, but it would still be government surveillance, even if they argued it was for the common good.
Yeah, I see both sides of it, and you see this whole 15-minute cities, and there's no way of knowing what is going to be coming in. And I see every myth from EV fires to we're tracking us and they can turn your car off. I think when it comes to pay per mile, the concern for me and for people that I speak to regularly, is it really about filling that hole in fuel duty? Or is it deeper than that? Is it linked to your digital ID, your freedom of movement? And I understand it because these are people's genuine concerns. They're in the press, they're in the media. People don't really get the full story. They see headlines and make up their own story. And it's impossible to know what's going on these days. But for me, do we need more tax or do we need less government waste?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose on the face of it, this is just about raising money, right? In its simplest form, they want more money. I said before, I think it was July or April this year that the taxing EVs did come in anyway.
Yes, so we recently saw VED or road tax, whatever you want to call it, come in on electric vehicles. I think it's extremely naive for people to think that that wasn't going to happen. Anybody that had done any sort of basic research, it was never going to be.
We said it for years. I mean, for all the time that EVs have been out, I remember road testing a small Mitsubishi model at least 10, 12 years ago, maybe. And one of the things that came up, there's no road tax on it. And everybody said, well, at some point, of course, there's going to be. Yeah. That wasn't a conspiracy. That was just an obvious direction of travel, as it were.
Yeah, this is the conversation that I have a lot, especially online when they face these hate and sometimes abusive comments from people that don't really have the knowledge to be discussing this topic yet.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of misinformation.
It is true to say, Jordan, isn't it, that, and I hadn't really thought about it until we started the programme today, but the government do make money out of EVs already because obviously to charge it requires electricity. Electricity comes from electricity companies, and electricity companies pay tax, and there's certain levies there. So the government do already make something from it. I don't know to what degree that is.
It's much deeper than that, actually, because we recently had the EV incentives come in for purchasing a new EV. Now, you can get X amount of money reduced off a new EV if you purchase it from new. But the amount of new vehicles sold because of this incentive has actually meant that the government has made more money through VAT. So it's actually quite
that's interesting.
Of raising money.
Yeah. And it wasn't every car, was it? It was only new cars.
Yeah, new cars, certain models that had to hit certain parameters, things like where they were built and the emissions and production, that sort of things.
Why? I've driven loads of EVs. My neighbour has an EV. In fact, I said this morning I went on the dog walk and I think most of the cars I saw on that it just jumped out. I didn't even think about us talking about this today. I just clocked a lot of, when you're walking the dog and it's still dark at 6:45 in the morning, you're always aware of vehicles. And, of course, those sneaky EVs come along like the silent assassin. So I was sitting there thinking to myself, isn't it interesting how many I've seen? But I've never owned one. What would you say are the reasons why it's an obvious leap to make, quite aside from the fact that there's going to be a point when they only make EVs, but in the interim, what's the best argument for an EV?
Both of those points aren't completely accurate. Now, the first one that you made is very much around fear of change. Obviously, you're used to driving petrol and diesel. It's all you've ever been used to. Yep. Future generations and younger generations will only see whatever is coming next as normal. In terms of things like road noise and sneaky EVs, we've recently had tests done with Channel 4 and Channel 5 documentaries where the majority of noise from a car is road noise anyway, so you don't actually need that.
So it's the tyres on the road.
Engine noise, yes. Yeah. And talking about seeing more of them and sneaking up on you, people don't realise how many are actually being registered or entering UK roads. We've just this month in October surpassed the entirety of 2024. We're approaching potentially 500,000 new EVs in the UK just in 2025.
There it is. It is the future.
Not necessarily, because it's obviously it's a choice, isn't it? And it doesn't suit some people, it suits others. Some people made the change early and have benefited from all the incentives and being an early adopter. I say all the time, the people that were the ones that suffer are those that hold out the longest. It is a part of life where things change. Is it EV the future? Who knows? But one thing's for certain, it's definitely not petrol and diesel with how inefficient.
Yeah, I think whether people like that or not, that is absolutely bang on. We will not, but it could be hydrogen. Who knows? Could be wind power. Maybe a big sail on top of your roof. Who the heck knows?
Well, hydrogen's a completely separate topic, but
that's for another day.
That is much more difficult to implement than EVs.
Yeah, you might be known as the hydrogen guy in a few years' time. We'll look forward to that, Jordan. Nice to have you on with us. That is Jordan. He's known as the EV guy across the socials. Thank you to him on that. You know, wasn't there a theory at one point that we're going to put a noise option on cars so that they would play like a fake noise on electric cars? And I'm sure somebody told me, I'm sure this isn't true, but when you see those old war movies and there's kind of like a German plane and it makes that noise, that as it's about to go and bomb, that noise it was something attached to the aeroplane. And maybe you could have something, so your car would sort of have its own ringtone. I quite like the idea of whacking out a bit of chitty chitty bang bang as you mooch down the road. Or, I don't know, going down the M25, playing Benson Boone's greatest hit. Maybe we could do that. I love the idea. 0344 499 1000. Is pay-per-mile the future of driving? Thoughts on that? Do you love your EV? The Villa match tonight. We're talking about Prevent. The list goes on. Our lines are open. This is Talk. Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Let's go to your calls. We've got so much to get through. Man alive, we are absolutely rammed. Don't be going anywhere, kids. This is the home of common sense. Charlie is in East Sussex on EVs. How you doing, Charlie?
I'm very, very well, Ian, as usual.
Fantastic.
Yeah, look, I love your show, Ian, but sometimes I'm sitting in my electric car, pulling my hair out. Well, it's a good job I haven't got any hair.
There you go.
Because,
it's a metaphor.
You know, EVs, I've just clocked up 75,000 miles in mine. I've had it for 3 years.
It's knackered, mate.
It's absolutely great. Don't have any issue with it whatsoever. It's cheaper to run because I do charge at home and I do accept that. But and I use mine for work. Getting onto this 3p a mile, that means I'll be paying, on the mileage that I've done, I'll be paying an extra £750 per year.
Wow.
Now, look, does anybody seriously think that the amount of money that goes on fuel duty, VAT on fuel, VAT on cars, all of this, tolls, road tolls, where do you think that money goes? It doesn't get spent on the road infrastructure.
No, it's not. It's not. I think the word is hypothecated to specifically roads. I think it maybe once upon a time it was, but now it just goes into the big pot, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just another form of tax. Yeah. You know, you earn that pound you earn. How much is that really worth at the end of the day? Yeah. Probably about 35p. So look, let's not get too bunged up with this anti-EV. Oh, going to charge EVs. Yeah, they're great. The other thing I will say is all these nuts that come out and say EVs are damaging the road. Yes, they are a bit heavier, but I'll tell you what. They're only about the same weight as an SUV, and there's far more SUVs on the road than there are. So, you know, it's not damaging the road. I'm paying my tax on this car. Yep. I'm paying my tax through electricity, which also, if you think about it, I'm paying all the green levies as well by charging it up at home, aren't I?
Yeah,
so,
true.
Yeah, let's just get away from it and let's say, look.
To be honest, we've been on air nearly an hour. I don't think we had one councillor who wasn't that happy with his own one, but I don't think there's been much of a pile-on for EVs. I think there is a question mark over pay per mile as a separate point, really, because this could apply to EVs and non-EVs going forward. Who knows? What do you drive, Charlie?
I drive a Tesla.
Oh, you're a Musk.
My wife drives an electric Vauxhall Corsa, and that has been the best decision we've ever made.
Right.
She doesn't do many miles, and she does less than about 250 miles a month, and that costs about £5 to charge up.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were going to say a Vauxhall Viva for a second. Remember those things?
No, Vauxhall Corsa, sorry. Vauxhall Viva. But I mean, let's have a look at it. They're not for everybody.
Okay.
But I think it's.
Well, they will be going forward because the only thing you'll be able to buy.
Look, Ian, when I was little, I'm a little bit older than you, I think. When I was little, you watch programmes like Joe 90. We should all be going round on monorails now and flying cars. So, you know,
it's only round the corner, Charlie.
Well, I would hope so. But let's you know, Ian, we can't even get our water right in this country. Yeah. So, you know, the fact that everyone's going to be driving in this utopia of electric vehicles is for the birds. And I would say that for the next 50 years because we just have not got our infrastructure's crumbling.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? Is you can say what we like about more EVs and, you know, getting smarter ways to get people to adopt, but the infrastructure is the bit that ultimately is going to let everybody down. Charlie, I've got to stop there. You've been brilliant. Thank you. I've got loads of info coming in, by the way, on sirens on planes, which could be applied to electric cars, because one of the arguments is you can't hear the darn things. We'll come back to that in a second. I'll treat that with, I think, the respect it deserves, because there's been some great texts and tweets on it. Kim's in Manchester. We've not got long, Kim, but I'm sure you can do it. What are your thoughts? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yes. Now, I work in Altrincham at a charity shop and on the mainstream.
Yep.
Now, a lady got out of the car and she was asking for help. She had an electric vehicle. She couldn't move it. It just completely broke down.
Right.
So we all got out of our shops and we tried to push it. It wouldn't move. No matter what we did, tried lifting it, nothing moved.
Lifting
there was
it?
Traffic after traffic.
What's going on there? Imagine the Avengers or something. What's happening?
It just, once it doesn't work, once everything goes on it, you cannot move the car.
Yeah. I mean, cars do break down, in fairness, don't they, Kim? You know, whether they're electric or not.
But you can move the car. You can push it aside.
Normally give it a shove. So
Yeah,
they're too
you can
heavy. Is that the problem?
No, the brakes were just completely on it.
You sure they hadn't left the handbrake on?
No, we did. Even everybody tried getting in the car and helping. But nothing.
50 of you. This thing wasn't going to budge.
It was not moving for anything. So it took 3 hours.
That's why you couldn't move it. There were 50 people inside. That was the problem. That was the problem. Listen, I love it. Kim, thank you very much. Thank you for highlighting a potential pitfall in the EV world. You can't push start, but then you wouldn't. I mean, you couldn't, could you? Because the mechanism of how it operates is completely different. But I love the imagery and I love the story and the call. Kim, thank you. Right now it's 2 o'clock. Let's get the latest news headlines.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yeah, we're chocker at this end. Welcome back to the home of common sense. We are, of course, talking about this proposal for, I think it might even be more. This is going to pop up in the budget. Give it a couple of weeks when Boomerang Rach stands at the dispatch box. She's going to tell you that there's a plan for a 3p per mile EU levy on EV cars from 2028, stinging up to 6 million drivers. Costs around about 250 quid a year, while petrol drivers already pay around 600 in fuel duty. Hybrids pay less. No mass tracking, by the way. Don't be getting your tinfoil hat on. They ain't going to track you. They're just going to charge you up front a fee, apparently. The Treasury still expects to raise 1.8 billion on this by 2031. Of course, fuel duty receipts have plunged through the floor. Is it just another tax grab? dressed up as kind and fair. We'll take more details and calls on that. And how do you love your EV? Have you got buyer's remorse, or are you an absolute convert and would never go back? Bound to throw that one in there. Also this evening there will be 700 police but 0 away fans in Birmingham tonight, as Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are barred under Birmingham's Safety Advisory Group ruling in their match against Aston Villa. Keir Starmer criticised the ban, but it's bureaucrats calling the shots, it seems. Fans lose out while authorities scramble to avoid disorder. And what you've got is a massive anti-Israel, anti-Semitic probably protest planned, turning that neck of the woods into a very, very bizarre interpretation of what people expect at a football match. It's going to be extraordinary. We're across the details, and if you're a fan of Villa or indeed of Maccabi Tel Aviv, we're all ears at this end. 0344 499 1000. And as we've been discussing, prevent referrals are at record highs, with 8,700 of them in the last year. Extreme right-wing concerns rose 37%, and that now outstrips Islamist cases. But the system is bogged down by referrals from schools and councils, mental health overlapping in there as well. A lot of box ticking going on. You do wonder what constitutes a referral, what it is a teacher has to see or experience to go, oh, I think that kid might be a wrong 'un. My guess is not very much. You might have liked to post on social media, which will be enough for someone to go, got to keep our eye on little Johnny, because he's liked to post by Tommy or something. And therefore, you know, that. I think there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. Lots of comments on EV, lots of comments as well on Villa. Sally in Birmingham says, I'm a Villa fan and a season ticket holder. I've got tickets for tonight, but seriously thinking about not going. I live 1.5 miles from Villa Park, so I know the area very well. It is a different country, and I'm fearful of how bad it might become this evening. Villa have not sent out a match day guide, which they always do, so no guidance on what to do, how to get there, which gates to use. Makes you wonder if cancelling the match is still on the cards. Thank you for that, Sally. And they've gone to extraordinary lengths to essentially facilitate an anti-Israel march. Schools closing early. I think the airspace above it. I mean, you usually got to have the President of the United States visiting, along with the President of China simultaneously, along with Vladimir Putin simultaneously, to cancel the airspace above your venue. But this is where they've gone on this one. Details from you, 0344 499 1000. Now, police chiefs are warning that Labour's sentencing bill could trigger a 6% rise in crime in the UK, meaning an additional 396,000 crimes each year. If you follow those numbers, this comes as 2 more prisoners were accidentally released in the past week, signalling a justice system on the brink of collapse. One of them actually handed himself in this morning. The sex offender is yet to be found. In a moment, we'll speak to Dr. Philip Lee, former Justice Minister, who knows a thing or two about this area. First, Matthew Barber, Police and Crime Commissioner for Thames Valley. Matthew, good afternoon to you. Look, I know Police and Crime Commissioners, along with Chief Constables and others, do their best to find ways of reduction and new initiatives to try and reduce criminality in your own areas and your own patch, etc. The smart money says, well, if you start releasing people earlier than they should do, just one example of this, then you might end up with a bigger problem than the one you started with. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. I mean, you're absolutely right. We've seen reductions in crime in Thames Valley, around 2% every year for the last few years. So things are going in the right direction. But I think the National Police Chiefs Council are quite right to raise the risk of this. Simply, if you've got people who should be locked up and in prison out on our streets, the chances are they're going to be committing offences against the rest of us. And that's one of the reasons why it's important that we do lock people up when it's appropriate, because it's about protection of the public more broadly. Now, of course, it's also right that we do better work around rehabilitation. And I think where the government are missing a trick is that one of the messages around short sentences not working is because there isn't enough done on rehabilitation, there isn't enough done on drug treatment. That may be true, but that doesn't mean that you scrap the short sentences as well. I think there is a happy medium which we seem to miss in this country, which is where we do lock people up because punishment is quite right, keeping people off the streets and protecting the rest of us is quite right, and while they're behind bars, we ought to be rehabilitating them. We ought to be teaching them to read and write and training them so they can get a job when they come out of prison the other end. We ought to be getting them off drugs whilst they're in prison, not as we have at the moment where people will go into prison and they'll come out addicted to more substances than they went in. Yeah. So it's absolutely clear prison isn't working, but not sending people to prison is not an option. I think that this change, this removal of a lot of these short sentences will see prolific offenders, who are often the ones who cause some of the most significant volumes of crime in our communities. They're not the most serious offenders necessarily.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're the ones that the regular shoplifters, the regular criminals who are responsible for vehicle crime, those lower level, I hate to say low level, but those lower level things which will cause real disruption to communities, make people feel unsafe. And simply allowing them to come back out again, we will see that cycle of crime repeated.
Well, 100%. I've told this story often. I remember a prison going on a walk around. It was Maidstone Prison in Kent. The prison governor was saying, you know, that wing over there, we don't get any trouble from those people. That wing over there, we don't really get any trouble. That one over there, we get a lot of trouble. He said, these are the ones that are in and out, like, regularly, non-stop. They go out, 2 months away, they're back again, usually sitting there with their mates in the cell next to them. It's just a kind of revolving door of criminality. And yet that might well be the group that end up not going to jail.
I mean, I think we've got another problem at the moment. There's two pieces of legislation going through Parliament. There's a sentencing bill, but there's also the crime and policing bill. And one of the things that's much heralded in this is around the £200 threshold for shoplifting.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked on your show about this before. It's a complete urban myth that shoplifting below £200 had been decriminalised. It wasn't. What happened was you could go to the magistrates' court rather than the Crown Court for offences below £200. Yeah. That was meant to take pressure off the Crown Court, and I can think of cases, plenty of cases, which the police have prosecuted, where people have ended up going to prison for those lower value offences, but it allows swift justice. And we've allowed this myth to grow up in this country, where the current government have told everybody that nothing happens for less than £200. It's simply not true. But what they're changing in the new legislation is they're making theft below £200 what's called an either way offence, which means it can be tried either in the Crown Court or the Magistrates' Court. And I guarantee if I was arrested for stealing a bottle of whiskey, I'd say, I want my day in court, I want a jury trial, and I'll wait 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, please, for a court date. Yeah. That one change is going to mean that rather than seeing swift justice with people taken to a magistrate's court, potentially getting a short prison sentence for that theft offence, instead they're going to be left out in the community. They're going to be out there, I think, probably for years waiting for a court date for some of those lower level offences. And at the end of it, are we going to get witnesses who are willing to come forward 3 or 4 years down the line? Yeah. There's a real challenge around criminals seeking to delay cases through our Crown Courts, and that one simple change potentially puts another 100,000 cases through the Crown Courts.
Yeah, 100%. Matthew, thank you very much indeed for that. Matthew Barber, Police and Crime Commissioner for Thames Valley. Let's speak with Dr. Philip Lee, former Justice Minister, was a Conservative MP for Bracknell for almost a decade, as I remember. Philip, now moved over to the Lib Dems.
No, I'm not there now.
Oh, you left the Lib Dems now? Is there no happy home for you, Philip?
Well, exactly. I get the impression from polling, about 5 million of me, I'm not alone, are politically homeless here.
Yeah.
So
no, I think there's a lot of our listeners as well.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see until there's a party that comes along that's serious in the centre ground.
Well, you've got Polanski with his Greens, you've got Farage with his Reform.
The polarisation of politics started with the referendum in 2016, and it's ongoing.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right about that. Something else that's ongoing, of course, is crime. I've always had this vision that in 300 years' time, you know, kids will be taught in school, they'll be musing and scratching their heads. Well, they couldn't sort out crime back in the day. It'll be an extraordinary mystery to future generations, but we clearly haven't. And the balance that no one can quite get right is this business. You know, does prison work to a degree? For some people, if I went to jail, it would absolutely work. If you went to jail, it probably would. For some people, it clearly doesn't. For others, it compounds the problems. On and on it goes. You know this as a former Justice Minister. It's never off the desk when you're in government, these kind of dilemmas. What is the answer here? Because, release people where prison makes no sense. Yeah. But if they're likely to commit more crime, then you've created a problem, not solved one.
I mean, how long have you got, Ian? I can tell you now that the biggest challenge facing the Ministry of Justice is recidivism, reoffending.
Yeah.
The entire place is creaking in every way, staffing, both in the department but also within prisons, because the courts are overflowing, the police are having to sort of like reduce their interest in certain crimes. The whole thing is to do with reoffending. And when you look at the numbers, the reoffending is being done by a relatively small number of people.
Yeah.
So it's like a churn, right? Now, to deal with it, and trust me, I've got the scars on my back quite literally from being in the chamber. If you're a conservative, it's quite difficult to deal with this, because when you look at the numbers, when you look at the state of the criminal justice system, when you look at the way in which the private sector interacts with the criminal justice system, which is also dreadful. I mean, it really is. I mean, I remember I had prisons where the per place prisons, the private prisons were twice as expensive as the state-owned prisons.
Wow.
So when you look at the whole thing, actually to deal with it properly, sensibly, following evidence, which is the sort of politics I always try to immerse myself in, you end up having to come to some difficult conclusions around sentencing, and also difficult conclusions about how you deal with people who are leaving prison. Because otherwise, if you don't deal with them as they're leaving prison, ideally if you let them out of prison when they're supposed to be let out of prison, they just come back, because it's a rational behaviour. For somebody who's generally, they're quite chaotic characters, they go out and they're being asked to go and see the private probation service. And by the way, the privatisation of the probation service was an absolute disaster. So you've got that. They go one agency, you've got local government doing the housing. You've got all of it, and this one individual who's been locked up for a couple of years comes out. The appointments are here, there, and everywhere. They don't have a car. They don't have any accommodation, whatever. What do they end up doing? They end up repeating their behaviour, nicking stuff in order to survive sometimes. But actually, it's just a rational response to their circumstances. Yeah. That does not mean that they shouldn't be charged, convicted, and banged up where appropriate. It's just that the dealing with these issues isn't just about banging them up. And yes, I can say in one sentence, prison doesn't work. Just look at the numbers, the recidivism numbers. Prison doesn't work, but it only works in that it takes these people off the street and stopping them making crime. So it works in that it stops them committing crime
for that period of incarceration.
But they don't. It doesn't work in terms of stopping them.
Yeah. You don't adjust the mentality, the criminal mentality.
That's the hard stuff, which often ends up with. I remember, I'll give you an example. I pushed hard for sport in the criminal justice system because I'd looked at the evidence about particular sports that work to reach particular types of prisoners. One sport in particular is well documented, amateur boxing in communities, just improves discipline, reduces crime, etc., etc. And I wanted to try to use amateur boxing internally within the prison system. What did I get? Within the system itself, within HMPPS, we don't do that. And then the papers got hold of it and started having a go at me, thinking that somehow I was trying to teach them how to fight. Trust me, these guys know how to throw a punch. They're aggressive and they're violent, yeah? The point I'm trying to make is that it's often quite tough to do what the evidence tells you to do in this environment. And the final thing I say, rant over after this, Ian, is justice has always been a Cinderella speciality in politics. You know, you don't go to justice to ask David Lammy. You don't go to make your mark in politics. It's tough because the system's pretty screwed throughout the entire police, prisons, courts, the whole thing. And there's always some really tough stories. So you get the War Boys release a couple of years ago, but the proposed release. You know, those sorts of things come up as a matter of routine. Now we're getting these prisoners being released by mistake. I mean, it's not easy being a justice minister.
No, I don't suppose it is, and I wouldn't want to be one. I wonder if there's almost another interpretation of all of this. Do we just have to conclude, Philip, that the human race, the human gene pool, however you want to look at it, will just always throw up a percentage of wrong-uns, and those wrong-uns might be lifelong wrong-uns. They might be people who, because of their circumstances, had a horrendous start in life and went down the wrong path, but they soon got back on track. We can try all we like, but we're always going to be putting a gloss on it because there is no solution to eradicating criminality.
I mean, I hate to say it, but if you sort of applied that thinking to health, to education, it's not just in the justice arena where there is this. You could make a case for a particular section of the population just not being capable of either looking after themselves, educating themselves, or indeed not committing crime. I try to believe in the more positive side of human spirit, and I think you can change things. I'll give you one example, Ian. I was responsible for youth justice. Now, at any one time, there's about 1,000 people under 18 banged up in this country. The recidivism rate in the justice system, youth justice system, is around about 70%, or it certainly was when I was doing it. Which is the definition of failure, basically. Yeah. In Spain, these figures are from when I was a minister. About 70% of the places for youth justice places in Spain are provided by a not-for-profit organisation called Diagrama. I went over to one of these units. Their recidivism rate at the time was less than 40%. It may have even been lower than that. So about half. The costs don't even go there. Some of the private sector youth justice institutions in this country, absolutely shocking costs. These are PFIs actually signed by under the new Labour government. So we're talking Jack Straw time. Over £200,000 a year per place. Wow. With a 70% recidivism rate. And I wanted to bring Diagrama into this country to take over, actually specifically Medway, because you remember the old Panorama did a program 10 years ago, one of those where they got hidden cameras and things, and it was a shocker. And that happened just before I became a minister. So I had a look at it. I thought, well, what about this outfit? They could come in. The pressure not to, immense in the system. Question why, and I'll let you follow that if you're interested.
Yeah, what I was about to say, why?
They had applied previously, but had been told that they hadn't fulfilled the requirements of a normal procurement process or something. And funnily enough, companies that exist, private sector companies that exist in this space, know how to fulfil the requirements of the MOJ and everything else, and they got the contract. But I wanted the evidence that they were actually was value for money, and that they were actually turning these kids' lives around. Because when I went to Diagrama in Spain, it was even the culture. I remember visiting a youth facility in this country, I won't say where, scared the living daylights out of me. And they had problems after I left with staff being beaten up. I went over into Spain, less security on site. These are with the young people and teenagers who'd murdered, raped. I'm not talking about petty stuff. And they had a completely different culture. And funnily enough, they had a completely different set of outcomes.
Wow.
I just say that as an example. This space, there are some good organisations, some good people who want to try to effect change with the express intention of reducing crime, and yet they struggle to get through into the justice sort of section system and be taken seriously. And if there's one thing I regret, because I was the first minister to resign over the whole Brexit wars nonsense in the end of the last decade. The one thing I regret was I was sacrificing being a justice minister. So having thought I was being given an absolute shocker of a job, by the end of 2 years, I wanted to continue doing it because I could see where you could make progress.
Yeah. And that's a fairly poignant point to finish on, and one I hope we can pursue and speak about again, Philip. It's been great to have you on, sir. Thank you. Dr. Philip Lee, former Justice Minister. I thought that last point is great. I didn't really want the job as Justice Minister. When I got it, I didn't want it to end, because you felt, wow, I can do something that can make a difference. I think what he was saying in another translation, we didn't get time to really pursue it, was that you've got civil servants and bureaucracy in every strand and tentacle of government. I'd imagine this is no different. And the last thing civil servants ever really want is change. You'll start changing stuff, meddling. No, we've got this system in place, but it doesn't work very well. No, but it's more hassle and jip if we try and change it. I think that's the mentality they're dealing with. Fair play to Philip Lee, former Justice Minister with the Tories. Thank you to him. Over to you, 0344 499 1000.
I think it's disgusting that there are essentially no-go areas in our country for British Jews. We should never have allowed this situation to happen. Football matches should be able to go ahead, and fans, British Jews or fans from overseas, have to be able to come and enjoy these matches. What's happened in Birmingham is a total disgrace. And remember, when this was first announced, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary said that they were aghast and that they were going to sort it out. They failed.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Here's one on the Villa match tonight. I'm a Villa fan, moved away from Birmingham 6 years ago, having been born and bred there, got fed up with seeing the demise of this once great city. The only time I go back to Birmingham now is to watch Villa. Other than that, I'd gladly never set foot in Birmingham again. I will not be going tonight due to the circus surrounding it. There will inevitably be trouble. If a right-wing agitator had called for 300,000 to descend upon it, he'd be arrested. But the main instigator in this protest gets TV time on your platform and others. Let's call it for what it is. Anti-Semitic, anti-Israel and an anti-Jewish protest. That is indeed true. It is fair to point out, I think, in balance, that when Alex Phillips interviewed the organiser and lawyer, this is the same lawyer that represented those brothers that smacked the living daylights out of a couple of coppers at Manchester Airport, by the way. He wasn't on to promote it. He was on to be questioned as to what the hell he was doing. But I 100% agree with everything that's just been said on that last point from our text, or was it a tweet? It was a text. Thank you very much for that. It doesn't say who it's from, but thank you. Tony's in Kent. Tony, how you doing? Electric cars. Are you a convert, Tony? Good afternoon.
Hello, Ian. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a convert, but I'm a London black cab driver.
Okay.
One of the finest, of course.
Indeed. You got an electric cab?
I've got a hybrid. I've got the LEVC.
Okay.
And so have most of my mates. Now we wasn't conned into it, but we was forced into purchasing one by the mayor, who you know is
best mates with the black cab fraternity, of course.
Yeah. Oh, we love him. We love him. No. Right. He forced us into having these cabs on the premise that the Euro 6 engine is going to become non-existent. That's the diesel. You can no longer buy a new diesel taxi. Right, now you've got the choice. You've got the LEVC, which is a hybrid, or you've got the Nissan, which is 100% electric.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so now they're going to want to start charging us per mile. Can you imagine how many miles we do?
Yeah, it's a fair old whack, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're driving a cab.
From out here, I'm driving in from Kent.
Yeah.
And you know it's going to be a fair old whack.
Well, they're originally, Tony, what they're originally saying, or what they're saying to begin with, is there'd be a kind of a fee of about 250 quid based on average mileage.
Mm-hmm.
But then, how do they determine average? I mean, you could do. Somebody made the point. An MOT would tell you what the average mileage is, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't trust them. I think they're all liars. Now, here's the thing, right? I come in on the M2A2, right? They've had average speed cameras there for God knows how long, 2-3 years that they installed. I don't know anyone that's been nicked for speeding. Anyone. I've never heard of anyone being nicked for speeding.
Do they work?
Why was they... exactly. So
I know the bit of road you're talking about very well, and I wouldn't want to test it out, but it is a royal pain in the backside, isn't it? When
of course it is.
When you're on
it.
it.
An average, so you got to, you know. But most people speed up, slow down, speed up, slow down. They do. But anyway, that's besides the point, right? So they've been installed And the same as on the Westway, going out of town on the A40, going out, they've got signs up, average speed cameras 30 mile an hour all the way out. Again, don't know anyone who's been pinched for it, but they've been installed ages ago.
Sure.
Now, this is all in the pipeline.
Yeah.
I believe it was always in the pipeline that they was going to come up with this pay per mile.
Yeah.
That's why the cameras are there.
So they've been planning it all along. Tony, great call. Listen, I've got to move because we've hit the clock, but thank you for that. Tony down in Kent, but he's a London black cab driver. You do wonder with... this doesn't get enough airtime, but I'm going to completely support what Tony just said. In the amount of money spent on cameras in London alone in order to chase and clock drivers, whether it's for the laughably called congestion charge that's been there for God knows how long now, or these ULEZ cameras, which to me was the bigger mystery in many ways. I mean, the congestion charge one was a sort of experiment that kind of failed, other than raising money, because nobody with a straight face would say that the capital city is not congested, because it is, and it always is, and it almost doesn't matter, you know, what time of day it is. It could be midnight, you could be stuck on the highway or something. It's just absolutely bonkers. But the ULEZ cameras were more mysterious because this was to clock people driving cars that will naturally disappear anyway over... I mean, they were dropping... The kind of cars they were trying to clock were drop by the year. You know, every year there are fewer of them. It's just the way it goes. So you think, well, just wait 5 years and the cars that you don't want driving in the capital won't exist anymore. So the idea they went ahead with this multi-million pound ULEZ camera thing was always a little bit weird, and that's, I think, the point that Tony is kind of hinting at. Don't go away, Caroline, with you shortly. 0344 499 1000. It's 2:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
It is Talk 25 to 3, and this. A leaked 19-page memo has alleged that the BBC LGBT desk censors trans coverage by its own reporters, promoting pro-trans narratives and excluding gender-critical perspectives. Author Michael Prescott, former editorial advisor, has found that the broadcaster confused audiences by omitting biological sex from coverage of certain stories, including a case of the transgender murderer Scarlett Blake. Let's get a word from Maya Forstater on this, Executive Director of Sex Matters. I mean, there's a bit of me, Maya, on this one. I just think, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Move on. Next subject, because we kind of expect a lot of this now.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it from all sides from the BBC. We've seen them not cover stories that were of national interest, particularly about children's gender services. We've seen them covering drag queens and Pride endlessly as if they had an advertising contract. And then we've seen stories like Scarlett Blake, where a man murdered another man, and for weeks they said that was a crime done by a woman.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, journalistically, I do wonder what, and I apply this to lots of different stories we cover, Maya, to be honest, but with this, you might think somebody in the newsroom would just stick their hand up in the meeting and go, can we maybe clarify this?
Well, I mean, I think they do, but I think they get shot down, they're scared for their jobs. What the BBC has done is give those stories, any stories that touch on trans, to the LGBT correspondents instead of to the health or education or social affairs, so that they're ring fencing those stories only to the people whose job it is to sell gender ideology, rather than the journalists whose job it is to get to the bottom of the story and tell the truth.
Yeah. Has it got any better? I did notice a story, and I wish I could remember specifically which one it was, where the BBC, in fact, it was almost the opposite. They were one of the few, because the strange one that always gets me, the Mail Online are very quick to use the person's preferred pronouns. I don't know why. I guess because it's an international publication. But they do it worse than anyone. And this is the Mail that you think of when you think of the Daily Mail. Maybe there's something slightly different. But I did notice the BBC recently just didn't refer to someone's gender at all. They managed to very cleverly word it without going one way or the other, which is also not good enough. But it's still a rather bizarre place we've arrived in on this one.
Yeah, I mean, you see individual journalists trying to do their job, trying to make it clear for the audience. Martine Croxall on the news did a story about that she was supposed to read out pregnant people, and she said pregnant women. Yeah. And they got complaints, and they upheld the complaint against her.
Oh, did they uphold it?
Today they upheld it for saying pregnant women. So that, that's when you say journalists should put their hand up. When they do, that's what happens.
That's extraordinary. Did you say that happened today, that they upheld?
Yes, I just saw today that the complaints were upheld.
I mean, you do have to kind of almost want to rip your own head off with frustration at this kind of stuff. The idea, can you imagine going back, only 10, 20 years and sitting with your mate in the pub having a drink and, explaining and talking about pregnant people? Your mate would go home, wouldn't they, and go, do you know what, Ian's gone mad, he's gone nuts, he's talking about pregnant people. Nobody would, dispute, they would all be in agreement on this one, but we seem to have developed this kind of odd third way opinion in life.
And it's not what most people think, and it's not how you can explain a story so that people understand it. It is just something that's held in these enclaves of elite organisations, and within the BBC, in this enclave of the LGBT network and the LGBT reporters that have been given the censor's hand.
Yeah. Strange times. Is all of this getting any better, Maya? Because, of course, we had the Supreme Court ruling, which seemed to clarify a lot of... There were some journalists and broadcasters felt a little bit more relaxed that they weren't going to get fired for being, insensitive or politically incorrect. There's still an issue there, but has it improved a bit?
We do see it getting a bit better. For example, it seems like the LGBT reporters in the BBC have been sent off to the regions, and so there does seem to be a bit more freedom for journalists to report on the actual news. But the BBC, I mean, you think toilets are not a big deal, but they are. The BBC still hasn't sorted out its toilets policy. So if within the office you can't say who's a man and a woman, and you can't have clear rules in terms of the basics of toilets, then when it comes to reporting on the Olympics or on a crime story or in general on whether people who say that sex matters are on the right side of the law, you're not going to be able to get that right if within the office you have to pretend that men are women and women are men.
Hey, this is upside down stuff and then some. Listen, Maya, thank you. It's always great to gauge your opinion on this kind of stuff. Maya Forstata, who is the Executive Director at Sex Matters. And there it is. This is the BBC's own website. Says this, published or updated 19 minutes ago. The BBC has upheld 20 complaints over impartiality after presenter Martine Croxall altered a script she was reading live on the BBC News channel which referred to pregnant people. Croxall was introducing an interview about research on groups most at risk during heat waves, which quoted a press release from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. The presenter changed her scripts to instead say women, and the BBC's Executive Complaints Unit said it considered her facial expression to express a controversial view about trans people. The presenter said, Malcolm Mystery, who is involved in the research, says that the aged pregnant people, women, and those with pre-existing health conditions need to take precautions. But this organisation within the BBC, the Executive Complaints Unit, isn't that just the Complaints Unit? Give it a fancy name. They considered its facial expression laid it open to interpretation, that it indicated a particular viewpoint in the controversies currently surrounding trans ideology. So the breach there was actually about a newsreader giving an opinion. That's the essence of the breach. I promise you're going to hear more about this. I bet you for the next day this story is going to grow. 20 people complained that the newsreader corrected something to fact. So there's a press release to pregnant people. You only need to say pregnant women because only women can be pregnant. And that's what the newsreader did live on air. Their point is that she gave a sort of almost like a wink to the camera, like, yeah, I'm with that group, not that group, and that crosses the line of impartiality. This is dog's nonsense. I'm telling you, this is absolute hogwash. But this is the kind of world we're living in, and this is over there at the BBC. Hashtag, I think we can all say, I'm with Martine, can't we? I mean, maybe we need to get that going. Maybe go to Villa Park tonight with it. No, don't do that. People go, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm part of the Croxall demonstration. Really? No one told us about that. We didn't know about that one. Caroline down in London on that very match this evening. Caroline, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Please bear with me. Okay,
I'm bearing.
We have got a government who lies from the minute they got in. We have got a government that created the narrative far right since the Southport murders. The government are the one that are causing racism. Everything is about protecting Islamic phobia. Even Barnet Council are talking about Islam. Where's the Christian or Jewish or Hindu day? It's not. You have a bunch of 300 or so men, young men dressed in black from bottom to top in Tower Hamlets.
How was that even allowed, by the way? That's just intimidation, right?
Yeah. And the police do nothing. It doesn't matter how many bloody police, it doesn't matter how many police are going to be there today. They'll stand there and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not, yes, it is about the football match. Yes, it's about anti-Semitism. We know that. But where is this going to end? They are now creating the laws and rules in this country. They are allowed to do basically whatever they want. Yeah. And we've also got a BBC that should literally be dismantled. It is despicable, and I pray to God Trump is going to sue for millions. It is despicable, and this is not my country anymore. And people need to wake up. I've got Muslim friends, lovely Muslim friends. Some of them range from their parents from Iraq, from Iran, and do you know what? They all want to leave this country because they can see what's going on here, and it doesn't take long. They're getting for the Muslim Brotherhood. The head of the snake is not being closed down. It was talked about in 2015. Yeah. Nothing's happened, and and we're not safe on our streets, and we haven't got a judiciary system that works. I mean, this country doesn't function. It's just, I haven't got the words for it, Ian. And people are not waking up in this country. They are not waking up. And you've got Italy, everyone's going on strike, and we're doing nothing. Protests do nothing. These got the power. They are allowed to do anything.
Well,
could have stopped this right there and then.
Well, that's what we don't see this in this country, do we? We don't see politics. You know, right now, Keir Starmer is having a pina colada in a hammock on a beach in Brazil because he's gone over to the COP summit along with Sadiq Khan and Ed Miliband. What a trio of joy that would be. And they're over there doing that. What I'd like my Prime Minister to be doing is getting really angry about this extraordinary protest that is interfering with football. It's interfering with an ally. It's anti-Israel, it's anti-Semitic. You've got Palestinian flags flying all over the place in that neck of the woods, which is just weird, right? It doesn't matter where you are on the argument, it's just bloody weird to see that. I want to see Starmer stand up and go, get in the bin, you half-wits, that ain't happening. You're never to protest on this, otherwise I'll wheel out the water cannons. This is absolute nonsense. What era do you think you're living in? What country do you think you're living in? Who are you endorsing? Why the hatred? This is against Jews, it's against Israel. Anyone with half a brain can see that. But we won't hear that from him. In fact, we won't hear anything from Keir Starmer. We won't hear anything from the Home Secretary on this, other than we hope it all goes off peacefully. You know, we do wish the match could have taken place. Grow a pair, guys. What's wrong with you? It's the government. You're meant to have our backs, not the backs of people who are endorsing a medieval death cult on the other side of the world. Caroline, thank you for your call. On that point, we had this one from Vicky, who says, I'm a British Brummie. I emigrated to South Africa in the early 80s while apartheid was still on. There were signs saying whites-only parks or whites-only beaches. Are we now going to have signs saying no Jews? What on earth is going on in this country, says Vicky. Bang on as well. 0344 499 1000.
I mean, honestly, Pete, a manhunt, the prison service, tell me some sense, please.
David Lammy, hereafter known as the Monopoly Minister, because everybody receives a get-out-of-jail-free card. Really appalling, particularly with the Algerian prisoner. The police were not notified for 6 days. So he had a proper head start on the police, and quite simply, he could be anywhere on the globe right now.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Yeah, welcome back. Just before we go back to the phones, we're going to talk to Ian in Hertfordshire in just a second. We've got the voice of doom. It's the mystery voice. It's a politician, past or present, you're looking for. Day 2, this one. Who is this?
There are 2 things.
If you think you know, do not be phoning in because there aren't any prizes, but you can message if you fancy having a crack. 87222. Who is this?
There are 2 things.
Any thoughts on that number? If, of course, somebody identifies it correctly, we reveal all after the headlines at 3. If not, it rolls over. Here it is again.
There are 2 things.
87222. Back to that issue of electric cars. Ian in Hertfordshire, what have you got for us? Afternoon.
Hello, Ian. Yes, I think that the Starmersy, or Starmersy, yeah, that's what we call it, you know, the secret Starmers police.
Okay.
For ascertaining how many miles you do, you know, it's down to when you get an MOT, the mileage is recorded. It goes to DVLA. They get all the info.
Of course.
And of course, then if you exchange the car, you have to put the mileage in and everything like that.
Yeah.
So then, at the end of what year, you know, the end of the day, you're billed with that, and then the next driver or owner will take it on.
So they can easily check the mileage, right?
They'll check the mileage because the MOT has to have previous mileage of the MOT. So the next MOT will have that new mileage.
Yeah, of course.
So that's how they're going to do it, I think. But there you are. It's a great show. It's a great programme.
Ian, that's very kind of you, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. Let me get a word in from Vernon in Staffordshire on the Villa match tonight. Vernon, what are you thinking? Hi.
Furious, Ian. Absolutely seething. So here we have a football club that's been there since the 1800s. The area around Villa Park is like a ghetto. It's a dreadful place.
Mm-hmm.
It's very grim. It has to be said. The jewel in the crown is the Aston Villa Stadium. Everything else around it is very, very, very poor. Now, here we are once again. We are listening to the religion of peace, the local community. So let's analyse this. So, first of all, we don't want these terrible Maccabi Tel Aviv fans coming to the UK.
Apparently not.
Because they're nasty people.
Yep.
So we ban them. So, and of course, the pathetic police force and the security all around say, please understand this, we cannot guarantee the safety of Jewish citizens in the United Kingdom at a football match.
Yeah.
How bloody ridiculous. And now we're in a situation, so they're banned. So again, we now have to have another 700 police who are going to be around the grounds. Why, Ian? If the local community is so peaceful, why are they there? Surely we should be able to just walk in on our own. There'll be no There'll be no free Palestine morons on the side calling out. I've had enough, Ian. This is my country. This is my football club. And I damn well I expect law enforcement to do their bloody job.
How is it? I mean, why is nobody... I know I'm repeating myself here, but I said it before the news. You know, why is that they're not a politician shouting from the rafters at this? I mean, Keir Starmer said he disagreed with the idea of cancelling the away fan.
You know why, Ian? You're an outstanding broadcaster, brilliant at your job. But even you've got to be very careful what you say, because you're going to get cancelled. The reality of it is really simple. Just look at it. The Mayor of London, the Mayor of Derby, the Mayor of Bradford, the Mayor of Brighton, all of the people in the position of authority belong to the religion of peace. And if Labour go against that, they lose their 6 million voters.
Well, I mean, there's definitely something in the gerrymandering of votes. I think you're right about that. Listen, Vernon, I have to move for time and no other reason. Thank you, mate, for that. You raised some really good points, as so many callers have this afternoon. On that issue of EVs, let's get a voice note. This from Barry in Worcestershire. Barry.
Electric cars. Yeah, I had one for a bit. It was fine driving around town and for short runs, shopping and stuff. Then I went on holidays with it to Cornwall. Worst driving experience ever. Absolute nightmare trying to get it charged down there. When I had my petrol car, absolutely simple. As soon as I got back, I sold it and got a petrol car. I will never go electric again until they drag me kicking and screaming when you can no longer buy petrol cars.
There it is. We did ask at the beginning, do you have buyer's remorse or are you a newfound convert to EVs? Clearly the former there from Barry in Worcestershire. Hayden is in Grimsby. What have you got for us, Hayden?
Yeah, hello there. Yeah, I'm an EV lover, to be fair. I have been for about 3 or 4 years. I started off with an EV that had a range of 80 miles, and now I'm in a car that's got a range of 320. And my wife has an EV as well. Absolutely love them. Cheapest motoring ever, and to see what Labour's going to do next is not a surprise, really. I think it was coming. I think, fuel duty on petrol obviously is the majority of the price, and I'm not surprised. Sure. The only thing that surprised me probably is that they didn't go higher, because on the mileage that we do, it would probably cost me about 25 quid a month, I would say, on my figures, which is... bearing in mind, for 300 miles, it cost me a £5 to charge up. So, yes, it's what's to be expected, I guess.
Yeah, so you do all right. You like the setup. Obviously, if you charge from home, that's where you gain, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I charge up at home. It's only occasional when we go out of Grimsby do I end up having to charge up. And to be fair, the way that the chargers are all set up now, I think they get a bit of a bad press, really. I mean, you don't fully charge when you stop at one of them things. You charge up enough to get you home or to your destination. Okay. And they work really well.
There does need to be more of them, though, doesn't there?
There does. There is. There is quite a few though out there. To be fair, I mean, I'm driving a Tesla. Obviously, there's other ones out there that are not Teslas, but the network I find is really, really good. And I've never had an issue, to be fair, finding a charging point, because you get plenty of notice. And if you're on a motorway, there's loads and loads, for example. So
got it. So they are there when you want them. Love it. Thank you, Hayden, for that in Grimsby. Michael makes a point, reference a caller earlier. Who experienced somebody who'd broken down in their EV and nobody could push it to move it on or move it off the road. There's a good reason for that, by the way. Michael makes this point. Mike says, if an EV breaks down, it cannot be towed. It has to be put on the back of a wagon, I guess, like lifted, right? You can't push it because of the electric motors. Yeah, I mean, you can't jump-start an EV, obviously, because it's not engineered and designed in that way. Because it's an EV. It's just got a big fat battery in there. But that will be and it's very heavy stuff as well. And Don says crime and punishment is not complicated. We should transport convicted criminals to Australia, manacle prisoners to prison walls, feed them bread and water and cut costs. It's very easy, really, says Don, the Liberal in Chelmsford. Thank you, Don, for that. Voice of Doom. Are we going to get a winner on day 2 of the Mystery Voice? Here it is.
There are 2 things.
If you think you know who that is, 87222. We'll tell you after the news if we get a right answer. Here's the headlines.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Coming up on 3 minutes after 3 o'clock right here at the home of common sense. Welcome to Talk. We're discussing EVs. There's a whole load of things around EVs. Do you regret buying one? Are you absolutely enthused by your new EV purchase? Whichever way you swing on that. And of course your responses to this revelation that the budget will contain a new 3p per mile EV levy from 2028. We'll find out from Boomerang Rach when she stands up for her budget speech at the end of this month. It will cop 6 million drivers. They'll have to pay about 250 quid a year. Your thoughts on all of that? 0344 499 1000. Now, we are going to return to what is happening at Villa tonight. There's going to be 700 cops there, but 0 away fans in Birmingham for that Maccabi Tel Aviv match against Aston Villa. This is down to Birmingham's Safety Advisory Group ruling their match can only go ahead without the away fans there. There's going to be protests, all sorts happening. Keir Starmer actually criticised the ban, but apparently it's bureaucrats calling the shots here. Fans lose out. Thoughts on that? And as we've been discussing, the Prevent programme referrals are at record highs, 8,700 referrals. Extreme right-wing concerns rose 37% and now outstrip Islamist cases. But what do you think is behind that headline? We'll take your calls, your comments, your voice notes and your messages. 0344 499 1000, or of course you can message 87222. So let's move straight to that story. It's tonight, it's Aston Villa versus Maccabi Tel Aviv, and we know that the biggest presence there is likely to be the police, 700 of them, along with a bit of a protest as well. Away fans, of course, were banned after that high-risk ruling. There's a no-fly zone around the park. Tickets remain unsold. Some schools have closed early. The away end is shut. Only fans with pre-season purchase history can buy. I mean, there's a lot going on here for a 90-minute game of football. What are you making of it? We'll talk to the writer and broadcaster Jonathan Sacerdoti in just a moment. But first, our reporter, Nick Ellaby, is there at Villa Park to give us the latest. What is happening, Nick? And is there any update, any change of minds or hearts from the authorities? Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ian. It's all pretty quiet at the moment. The game kicks off at 8 p.m. this evening. You mentioned at the top a bit of a protest. Well, I mean, certainly a couple of people I've spoken to outside the primary schools here that were picking their kids up early told me that they were told by the primary school to expect potentially 20,000 people at that protest. There's going to be at least 2 groups of pro-Palestinian supporters, possibly more, gathering in the park just to my right. I'm outside Villa Park, the Holt end, the home end of Villa Park, ahead of their game against Maccabi Tel Aviv. And that pro-Palestinian sort of coalition protest is planned for about 6 p.m. this evening in the park here. And potentially some of those people might come down towards the stadium here on Trinity Road where I am now. And then another police officer earlier told us they are expecting some kind of pro-Israel counter-protest to come up from the other side. There's no proper plans for these protests. They're not kind of sanctioned. There's not a set route as they are for a lot of these things. So I think the police are just sort of playing this one quite cautiously. As you mentioned, 700 officers, dog teams, drones. There's a no-fly zone to stop people from flying their own drones here. There'll be horse-mounted police as well. And West Midlands Police say that, they're doing all that to try to balance the right of the right to protest and also the force's duty to protect all communities here in Birmingham. And they're being quite forthright, saying anyone who breaks the law will be dealt with directly, as will all those who incite hate. In terms of the local reaction, there are a lot of people in this community around Aston. It's over 70% Muslim who support and what the protesters are saying. What they would like is for Israel to be kicked out of international sporting competitions. Then the other thing that's going on is that Tommy Robinson, the founder of the English Defence League, has said he will attend the game in a Maccabi Tel Aviv shirt. Were he to arrive, that could certainly be a bit of a flashpoint. And then in terms of the football itself, the managers of both teams are unwilling to talk about the protests. They're just concentrating on the football. But the chief executive of Maccabi Tel Aviv has called it very sad that their fans can't attend the game. He said, we trust the local authorities, but this has become a political issue and we're not a pawn in a political game. This is Jack Angelidis, the chief exec of Maccabi Tel Aviv. He said, we're a football club. And then a few police just coming past me. There's a lot of school kids coming out early as well. Some of them quite happy about it, to be honest. It's all very quiet here, but I would say there is a certain amount of concern as to what might happen this evening around this game, Ian.
Indeed, Nick. Thank you very much indeed, Nick Ellaby, talk reporter outside Villa Park. He gave the list there of restrictions and kind of life changing the fabric, the sporting culture of this proud club taking a bizarre turn to appease what? A largely religious group? An anti-Semitic protest, an anti-Israel protest? I mean, they're dressing this up as a far more worthy political cause about Israel and their inclusion in world football. But I don't think many people are buying into that. Jonathan Sacerdoci is a writer and broadcaster who joins us now. Jonathan, this is, I mean, whatever way I slice this one and whatever angle you look at it from, this is pretty grim and troubling stuff going on here.
That's right, it is. And I think it's been a catalogue of errors, but it's not surprising at all when you follow these sorts of things. It seems that the police felt that they couldn't make it safe there, so they banned all the fans for the Israeli football team, when we've seen the police guarding and protecting and supposedly making safe many tens or hundreds of thousands of people on anti-Israel protests week after week after week for the last 2 years. And this, a football match, they couldn't manage to police that effectively. Yeah. So I think everybody knows that really the excuses are not the truth. And the truth is that there was this reprehensible decision that the Israeli fans shouldn't be allowed to be there, or the fans of the Israeli team. And now, in fact, that even Jewish fans shouldn't be there, because I know that there have been Jewish groups who tried to liaise and get permission for a very small group of people to be allowed to go there and show their support. That wasn't allowed. Yeah. And we hear about these protests being apparently pro-Palestinian protests. Well, what's that got to do with a football match with an Israeli team? I would say there's nothing pro-Palestinian about that. It's potentially anti-Israeli. And I would say that beyond that, it's pretty much anti-Semitic. So altogether, I think that this circus is actually quite representative of what's been going on in Britain over the last couple of years, and many Jewish people are getting used to this sort of sorry state of affairs.
And it does seem, I mean, we had, Keir Starmer a couple of weeks ago when this all sort of first came to the forefront, say that he disagrees with the ban, but that's kind of it, really. There's not a sort of a, I don't think every leader needs to be like Donald Trump, but every now and again you think, I could do with a bit of that from a leader. I could do with somebody getting bloody angry about this and really calling it out, going, what is this? This is Birmingham, for goodness sake. The home of Bourneville chocolate and God knows what else. An amazing, proud history, the second city, and we've got more Palestinian flags than we've got British flags. We've got people endorsing almost third world medieval countries over first world allies. It's a mess. I mean, somebody should be getting really animated about this over there at Westminster. Nobody is.
Well, Keir Starmer, yes, as you said, he really disliked this decision and he's done nothing about it. So, yes, that shows perhaps how effective he is, or maybe how truthful that declaration was. I think it's a little bit disingenuous anyway, because during the entire time he's been the Prime Minister, we haven't really seen any kind of effort to deal with the two-tier policing as it relates to, well, anyone, but certainly not to people in the Jewish community who felt very threatened by many of the protests that have gone on the streets. And let's be fair, let's not just blame the Labour government. The last government also didn't really do enough about it. We saw over the course of the last 2 years since the Palestinians invaded Israel, tons of PLO flags all over the UK. Nobody seemed to mind that. But when it came to people raising the flag of this country, well, that became very controversial. We saw terror flags. We saw like the Shahada flag, the black Shahada flag on the streets of London. I personally reported that to the police at the time. Nothing happened about that. We've heard chants, genocidal chants against Jews in Arabic. You know, the list goes on and on and on. I talk about it pretty much every time you and I talk. And they've done nothing about that. The authorities literally don't care about protecting Jewish people or British people. They care about the fact that they are afraid of violence from and losing the votes of, if they're politicians, Islamists, jihadists, immigrants who don't share our values and culture in this country. And sorry to say that this has become quintessentially British, this attitude. It's not surprising. It's completely predictable that this is how it's turned out. And tonight, though, what I understand we're going to see are potentially thousands of Brits, not just Jews, Brits, who are furious about this, increasingly angry about this. And then you mark my words, tomorrow they'll be talking about how the far right came out and ruined it and caused violence, but they didn't. What's happening every time is that people are increasingly frustrated, and when they talk about division and unity, the people who are dividing society are those who are making sure that the legitimate law-abiding people who maybe wanted to go and support that football team can't, or who maybe wanted to protect Jewish people in our society can't. And then what happens is there is a flashpoint, because they've been so put down, so contained, so forbidden from expressing themselves, that then there is some kind of tension. And I think that's the problem here. But more and more people are seeing through this, I think, every time.
Very thorough stuff, and spot on as well. Jonathan, thank you, sir. Always great to get your view on these things. The writer and the broadcaster, Jonathan Sacerdoti, with us on the programme. Over to you on this 0344 499 1000. And the more voices you hear on this. You heard Nick Ellaby, our reporter outside, giving the overview of what is expected and the restrictions and what it means for the area, schools turning out early, fly zones being banned, cops aplenty, away fans zero, etc. So there's all of that. But Jonathan, and I would agree wholeheartedly with so much of what he just said, if not everything he just said, because I've been saying it throughout the course of the whole show. It's just absolutely bizarre. Where are we, for goodness sake? Let's speak to Leanne in Birmingham, who's going to the game tonight. Leanne, I assume, is a Villa fan. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, hi Ian.
Hi.
We are Villa fans. We're season ticket holders, go home and away, both in the UK and in Europe. And in fact, as a family, we travel all over the world to watch football.
Fantastic.
And I can honestly say, there's myself, my husband, and our daughter going this evening. I have never felt this anxious and actually scared about going to a football game, but we're determined to go, because why should we stay away from the football club in our home city? It's absolutely disgraceful. And that Perry Barr independent MP that started this a couple of months ago, in its first night that we were playing Maccabi Tel Aviv, that's the same MP that stood up in the Houses of Parliament and actually asked for UK taxpayers to fund an airport in Pakistan. And the amount of trouble that he has caused with this is absolutely disgusting. And then we've got all the so-called Muslim community, everybody jumping on the bandwagon, and I guarantee there'll be some Villa fans tonight that will just be absolutely fed up with the scenes that they see. So they'll probably say something, and then before you know it, they'll be classed as far right. The police will be wading in on them. But it's the other way round. I'm so angry at the moment, Ian. I'm so fed up of the country that we live in, and all we ever hear about is the Muslim community. What about the British community? What about the football community? Football is a massive part of British culture.
Yeah.
So why have we now got people who probably don't care about football, don't even care about Gaza, just being used as an excuse to cause trouble, to protest, to put their stamp on things and put their stamp of authority in this country? It's about time we all said, no, enough is enough. This is Great Britain. This is a British country, and we should be able to go and support our team in peace and not have the worry of what we're going to be faced when we get down to Villa Park this evening. I think it's absolutely disgusting. I really do.
It's utterly, I mean, the more you talk about it, Leanne, it's completely bizarre. It's bonkers, isn't it? If it was if it was on TV, it'd be a comedy, because you'd go, well, this is just really funny. Guess what happened? It's not real. This is real. I mean, this is literally happening to your football club.
I just think it's sorry to interrupt you. It's about time that we all take a stand to this, because where does this end, Ian? Where does this? If there's something else that they don't like, where does this end? And actually, I feel sorry for the police this evening, because no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to win. You know what? Normally you have the big trouble between Villa and Blues, and lots of police around for that game. This is bigger. A no-fly zone over Villa Park. I mean, what the hell is going on?
Seriously.
I've never heard anything so ridiculous in my entire life. And the whole narrative of this at the start was it's changed every week. It's changed as to why this game shouldn't go ahead, or why the Tel Aviv fans can't come over. And all we've done is appease these people that want to come out tonight and cause trouble. And I don't know. I'm just. You know what? I'm just a bit fed up at the moment, Ian, with the whole country and the way that it's going.
There's any?
And this is just a small part of it.
No, I agree. Both clubs, and I understand this, have said, look, we're not going to comment on the politics. We're talking about football here. What about former players? I'm thinking about people like Stan Collymore and Ashley Young and people like that. You know, that have famously played for Villa, who are also quite vocal on social media and things like that. Have we heard from any of those guys?
Well, I'm not sure about Ashley Young, but I know Stan Collymore said something a couple of weeks ago, basically agreeing with the ban for the Tel Aviv fans because of their apparent history of football hooliganism and violence. And I just don't buy it. And I think that people that are saying all of this, that they're not getting the full picture here and the full story. Obviously, we've had the narrative about what happened in Amsterdam with Ajax, but I think most of the arrests that happened in that game was actually was the Ajax fan, well, the Muslim community in Amsterdam that went out to cause trouble against the Tel Aviv fans. Every football team, and I know this because we go to a lot of football games, every football team, whether you like it or not, has got an element of hooliganism, and you're always going to get some idiots that go and cause trouble, and all they're doing is grab onto that small minority with these Tel Aviv fans and then blow it up into something that it isn't. To suit the narrative, because actually the case here is they don't want this game to go ahead simply because they're an Israeli team. Nothing to do with the fans causing trouble in other games, in other countries. It happens all over the world. We've been to football games in Argentina. I've been to watch River Plate, Boca Juniors. I've been, stadiums where you think, my God, this might not be very safe. And I can genuinely say I am more worried and anxious about going to Villa Park in my home city
terrible, isn't it?
tonight
Terrible.
than that.
Lifelong fan.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. We're taking our 16-year-old daughter with us. And part of me thinks maybe we shouldn't be doing that. But why should we not go? Why should we not go?
I get that. Maybe we need Prince... It's a shame Prince William is not allowed to speak out, isn't it? You need a big voice, and he's a genuine Villa fan. I mean, it would be nice to get a voice. We're not getting it from our Prime Minister. He said he disagrees with the ban, but that was about all he said. Home Secretary is saying nothing. None of these people. There's no spine.
What he should be coming out now is saying is anyone that goes to cause trouble tonight under the guise of a protest will be dealt with the full length of the law. There'll be police officers there tonight that should be allowed to use force, no matter what that may be, for anyone that wants to just cause trouble. We saw those protests a couple of weeks ago. Was it in Whitechapel, where that apparently peacefully protesting, but what they're doing is intimidating people. If you're peacefully protesting, you don't need to be dressed all in black, masked up, balaclava, no one can see your face. That's intimidating.
Yeah, if there's any of that going on, I mean, to me, it should be game over for those people. Listen, Leanne, really enjoy, stay safe, obviously, but enjoy the match this evening. As a die-hard, lifelong, season ticket holding, well-travelled Villa fan, I think you deserve to watch a quality game of football and not be intimidated or feel unsafe in any kind of way. Thank you to Leanne in Birmingham, who is going this evening. Bit of breaking news. Justice Secretary David Lammy has said he was not fully equipped with all the facts about a mistaken prisoner release when he appeared at Prime Minister's Question Time. He said the government had a mountain to climb in tackling the prison crisis. Not wrong about that. OK, Voice of Doom. Have we got a winner? This is the voice we played you in the last hour.
There are two things.
It was day 2. Anyone got this correct? These are some of the guesses. Shabana Mahmood, Barbara Woodhouse. Wasn't Barbara Woodhouse the woman that used to do the dogs? She's a dog trainer, wasn't she? Barbara Woodhouse. Helen Whately, no. David Lammy, no. Penny Mordaunt, it is not. Anne Widdecombe, Gillian Keegan, Rachel Reeves, Edwina Curry, none of those, nor was it Barbara Castle. We have, however, got a winner. Yeah, these are going very quickly at the moment. Kaz in Bedford, well done. The answer was Nicky Morgan, former, I think, Secretary of State for Culture. Previous Tory administration, of course. Nicky Morgan was the right answer. We'll have a brand new one tomorrow. 3:20, this is Talk.
I mean, honestly, Pete, a manhunt, the prison service, tell me some sense, please.
David Lammy, hereafter known as the Monopoly Minister, because everybody receives a get-out-of-jail-free card. Really appalling, particularly with the Algerian prisoner. The police were not notified for 6 days. So he had a proper head start on the police, and quite simply, he could be anywhere on the globe right now.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
Brian says, and this is reference the kind of pay per mile thing. There is and it does bother me. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to be concerned about government tracking you, okay? Because there's good, solid, intelligent reasons to be bothered by that, because that's not the relationship that a first world democracy should have with its government. Even if the government argument is, well, we just use it to database stuff, and of course they've got to collate some information in order to make the world work. They've done that forever. They've got more spreadsheets over there at government HQ that you could shake a flipping stick at. I understand that. But when it comes to something that is as precise as literally your movements in real time wherever you happen to be, whether you're tracked because of a device on your car, your own digital ID in your phone, whether it's because we know that payment systems already, by definition, there's a tracking element to that. But it is correct and right, and in fact, it compulsory, frankly, incumbent on all of us to keep in check what a government is tracking, even if it's for innocuous reasons, nothing more than data and intel that makes our life better. Absolutely, in a democracy, it's appropriate to question the life out of a decision like that. So if you get digital ID and you get paper mile, not this particular form of paper mile, but if it moved to a tracking-based system, because the argument will be that's how you would track your miles, but of course it also tracks your time, your location, where you stop, and you put some GPS into all of that, and you've literally got a roadmap of every individual's movements at any single time of day. And yes, I do know that credit cards and phones already do a bit of that, but if you are designing it specifically to come up with those algorithms, then I don't think it makes you a tinfoil hat merchant to wonder if that is the correct relationship citizens want with a government. I think that's a fair and compulsory question that should be asked. Back to that issue, EVs, electric cars. Jason is in Wiltshire. Jason, afternoon to you. What have you got for us?
Good afternoon, Ian. I'd like to say thank you for taking my call once again.
Pleasure.
I only spoke to you yesterday. Yeah, I'm on about sort of the milk floats. I'm a vehicle technician. I run a garage for a living, so it's always a topic of conversation.
Yeah, God, how life has changed in that world then, right?
Well, it's a stopgap, but anyway, that could be talked about later. Right, they say they're green and efficient. The amount of pollution, environmental damage that's caused to mine the lithium out the ground, obviously this is done over in Africa or whatever, so we don't see it, but you've got big, heavy plant material machines burning up thousands of litres of diesel an hour. You then get this lovely lithium battery, which then you can't recycle. So what you're going to do with that when it deteriorates, because you can guarantee that's going to happen. Obviously, then you got the electric vehicle, the actual electric car. You can't really do a lot of them when they're kaput, like a normal, internal combustion engine.
True.
And then you get to, we're going to charge it in because we're green. But I'm thinking the percentage of people that are plugging their car in and they're getting their power from fossil fuel power stations. Have I sold it to you yet, Ian? Are you going to go out the showroom by yourself?
I'm going to buy one at 4:30 this afternoon, I think, Jace. I mean, why not? You are right about that. I think, did Volvo come out with some data a little while ago when they were comparing EV? I know there is a Volvo, I think there's an XC90 electric car.
There's a lot of manufacturers cutting back on doing their EV ranges now. They're holding back, or they're actually stopping models. Another good thing about them as well, they can self-ignite on you, and then you can't put them out because the lithium self-oxidizes, so it just burns. You've probably seen there's been a couple of ships this year so far that's gone up with electric cars in the sea, and they just burn.
I do hear people... yeah, I mean, you're right. When they go, those things go. But I'm also told...
dealerships where it's happened out around my area and the showrooms have caught fire,
Some people say that's scaremongering to stop people buying them.
No, it's not scaremongering. It happens. Like I said, there's a local Land Rover dealer next to me that had a nice new showroom put in, and 3 weeks later, one went up in the showroom. It was on charge. There was an Aldi dealer in Swindon that took the whole building down. And there was a Mazda dealer in Bath. They had a customer that had one. And the little girl went running into Daddy's bedroom one evening saying there's bright orange out the window, and it was the car on fire. So it's not scaremongering. It's electric car. You've got to sort of be a BBC Radio 4 listener. You've got to trust everything the government tells you and follow the narrative. So
I love it, yes. My car exploded during the shipping forecast. Listen, great to have you on again, Jason. Thank you. Jason in Wiltshire. We were talking earlier, by the way, about, again, what he's just said about electric cars igniting. I know there is some data that says actually non-electric cars blow up or catch fire, even as a proportion more than EVs do. I can't corroborate either of those figures, so don't take them as read, either what the conversation from Jason or the conversation that or the point I've just made. But I do hear that they're urban myths to put people off EVs. One of the things that used to put some people off EVs, and I can remember when they first came out, there was a heck of a noise about, well, in fact, there wasn't any noise. That was the problem. There was a lot of debate about the lack of noise from cars. And I did quite literally once at the old TalkSport, I was coming out of there and I walked round a corner and crossed a road, because instinctively I knew the road so well, you know it, you can hear if there's a vehicle, and there was a car coming around the corner, and jumped back in. I wouldn't call it a near miss, but it was a moment of like, God, 2 seconds later I'd have been a goner. And it's because I couldn't hear the car. And somebody had suggested that they might put a kind of noise, an optional noise, so you could sort of, I don't know, you could play the noise, not like a song, not like a ringtone as you come round the corner, the flipping ice cream man or a paramedic about to attend a pile-up, but something that gave a sound to it. And I said, I'm sure some of those old German, I don't know, Messerschmitts or something, that, you know, on a war film, make that noise, was an added thing. It wasn't literally the sound of the plane, it was something that was added to it. And a lot of people responded to this. In fact, Fox's fan, who always sends an enlightening message, love him, says, Ian, if EVs were so good, why the hell... Oh, in fact, no, this is a different message. I'll read this one anyway. Why the hell do they need to be subsidised? The only reason for the incentives is because no one wants them. And sales have not increased at all. They've gone through the floor, in fact. And Jeff buys cars, and I think we've had Jeff buys cars on the show, has done some research. No, the issue was this, Mr. Watchman. The Junkers 87 Stuka dive bomber had an air-operated siren, or a Larmgerät. That's got some umlauts over it, so it's a German word. It intimidated and scared enemies and gave an audible indication of speed to its pilot. So the higher pitch, I imagine, you realise you were doing a ton in the clouds. And if you were matey, having a Talio, old boy, flying your little Spitfire, your laundry bill shot up. And Kaz says it's called a Jericho trumpet. I find you just if you stick it on the roof rack on top of your car to make the same noise going down the A21 at 70. Well, that's what I was wondering. But she sent an image, though, of this little device. It looks like an air raid siren kind of noise, one of those things, stuck under a plane. The point being in all of this, could you apply that to electric cars where you don't know they're coming round the corner? Although somebody did dispute that earlier as well. 0344 499 1000, 25 to 4. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on the app, on your mobile, the home of common sense. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Welcome back. Just gone 25 to 4. Delighted that Sean Keach is back with us, Head of Science and Tech at The Sun. Good to see you, Sean.
Good to be back.
It was good to see you here because you're often in the air and travelling and going to kind of unveiling of new tech and initiatives. And, you know, you've been over to Apple, you've been over to Meta, you've been all over the place.
It's this time of year. All the companies are trying to get their stuff out for Christmas, and so they all want to do these big launch events. And it used to be back in the day that you'd sort of go to one big sort of like showcase and all the companies would go to that, but then they wouldn't get enough of their own limelight. So now they all want to do their individual events, so you're running all over the place.
You, I mean, you probably won't say this because you're too modest, but those companies, frankly, don't budge until you turn up. Did you know that?
I hope not.
Yeah. So Zuckerberg doesn't get a good night's sleep unless he knows Keach has been to see the latest innovation.
Absolutely.
Then he's okay with everything. Let's start with, not with Zuckerberg, but someone on the opposition, you could say, Amazon. This is the dodgy Fire Stick thing. This has been dodgy Fire Stick discussions from the bloke in the pub goes, you can get every single channel you like on this thing. Some might be purporting to be Amazon, some might be something else. But there's certainly going to be an attempt to shut these things down. What's going on here?
We might actually finally be seeing the death of the dodgy Fire Stick.
Really?
There'll be some of the listeners and viewers at home who might know someone with a dodgy Fire Stick. Some of them, I dare say, might even have a dodgy Fire Stick. But Amazon is doing this massive, massive crackdown. It started rolling out last Friday, and basically they're shutting down these apps that let you watch TV illegally. So a lot of people are using them to watch Hollywood movies, you know, when they're still in cinemas, or watching live sport and not having to pay the fees, because ultimately subscription fees are very expensive at the moment. So people turn to illegal streaming, obviously unlawful. Amazon's not happy with it, so they've cut it out completely, and it's not something you can even get around with a VPN. It is blocking it at device level. So if you can try and load one of these dodgy apps on your Fire Stick, it'll cut off. And so they've basically got this big list of apps that they think are doing this illegally, and they'll be adding to them over the time. So if a new one pops up, they can shut it down. And it's really the biggest crackdown we've seen on it so far, because obviously, you know, they've been blocking it in their own app store, but what people have been doing is buying these dodgy Fire Sticks at the pub that have these apps that have been sort of, it's called side loading, where they sneak it onto the app without going through the app store. And so people are watching these, and that's what Amazon's cracking down on now, is these side-loaded apps.
There is... TV is not straightforward now, is it? Because you've got you've only got a certain amount of HDMI portals on your TV.
We run out.
So you run out because like most have got 3. So and even a good TV, might have 4. But
I'm trying to test them all for the readers. So I've got about 17 things that I'm trying to plug into the TVs.
You must be like a kind of laboratory over at your. Yeah, but there is. So you click on and you want Apple TV, and I know you can do that via an app as well. The one I think that is, and also if you buy a certain make of TV, I bought a mini. I think it was a Samsung. Obviously, bizarrely, when you set that thing up, they also want you to be part of their little setup. And I don't know anybody who goes, what channel was that on? It was on Samsung last night. Nobody ever said that, did they?
No, and then we try and, we've got a Sky TV, and then we've got Apple TV plugged in, and sometimes we'll be watching the Apple TV, and then we'll be like, we want to watch iPlayer, but we're only signed in on iPlayer on the Sky TV, so then we have to switch to that. And it is, you're right, it's confusing. And then they will obviously have their own subscription fees as well. And they keep, I mean, I'm pretty sure every single major subscription service this year has put their prices up, but by varying degrees. But it keeps going up, and obviously, inflation. But of course, people can't afford to subscribe to all of these services. And especially sport is really the big one, and that's, I think, what has really driven a lot of the Fire Stick, the dodgy Fire Stick sales. Is illegal sports streaming, because sports, I mean, I'm very lucky that I'm not a big fan of sports, so I don't really bother with it. But if you're a sports fan, you are paying enormous sums of money.
Especially if you buy all of the various.
If you like all of the sports, you're
just like a few thousand quid a year. I tell you what, I've got Sky Glass. I think that genuinely ticks all the boxes. I know that the product, from some tech people, they gave it a little bit of a hard time but I don't think Sky Glass. They refuted the idea that, in order to get all of that in one thing, so you don't need you don't need a sound bar because it's got sound within it. And of course, die-hard aficionados will go, oh yeah, but it's not the greatest sound. I don't think they're suggesting it is. Some look at the screen quality and say, yeah, but you can look, it does everything. And when you turn it on, if you've got a Sky subscription, it's all there.
No, you're absolutely right.
That's to me. So you can get to your Amazon from there. You can get to your Apple TV from there.
It's a brilliant package, and I think that you're right. There is this problem with a lot of tech reviewers that they look at it from the angle of someone who really, really cares about tech. And actually, I think that the Sky package is very good because you get the TV, you can pay for it over a few months, and the TV service is bundled in. If you get Sky, you also get Netflix thrown in, Discovery Plus thrown in. If you sign up for Sky Cinema, then you also get Paramount Plus thrown in, and then it's all just there in one unit. So I think actually it is a pretty good deal.
That's what you want.
If you just want a telly to do it all.
But Sky Glass are also our next story here as well, because they're closing something down, but not Sky Glass.
It's quite a tragic story, really. There's this product called Sky Live, which is effectively a camera that you'd plonk on the top of your TV, and it would unlock extra features. So you'd be able to sort of do like live workouts in front of it, or play games where you move around, or do Zoom calls with your TV. The problem was that it was £290, which is a pretty big sum of money for that sort of package. So basically, they're killing it off. They're shutting it down. They're bricking all of the devices. So if you have one, it will stop working in early December, I think December 4th, and then they're refunding everyone. So you will get the money back. So effectively, you'll have sort of had it for free for the past 2 or 3 years. I think what happened was they started building this in COVID when we were all stuck at home, and maybe that seemed like a good idea at the time, but then it launches to a world where suddenly we're not all stuck at home and don't want to be dancing in front of the TV. And
was it kind of like a bit of a mixture of sort of Nintendo Wii meets gesture kind of Apple-y type?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, there used to be a very similar product for the Xbox called the Xbox Connect that some of the listeners might remember. But that was quite ill-fated as well. So I sort of think it was quite odd that Sky did this. But again, I think it was probably driven a lot by the fact that we were all at home at one point, and now we're not anymore. So that product's going to be dead. I think as a warning to people listening, watch out for people flogging these on the cheap on eBay, selling it as, oh, you can get this Sky Live, amazing, only 20 quid. It won't work. It's going to stop working in a month.
So they are removing the technology to allow it
will
work,
just break. So you can send it back to Sky for free.
Not enough people danced in front of their own TV.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it for free. You don't need to pay.
Well, there was a time when, a camera's being removed from TV more now, because there was a bit of an era, it seems, when lots of TVs came with a little camera on the top,
I think
like
it was
you
a bit
get
of
on
a
your
fad.
computer.
I think people worry about the privacy aspect, and I think also a TV is one of those things where it's a very mature product, and so companies, I think, struggle of finding new ways to flog TVs. I mean, you'll remember the whole 3D TV wave, and then there was the curved TV wave, and it's just TV manufacturers trying to get you to buy new TVs with these sort of alternative features, but ultimately people just want their TV to act as a screen, and you don't need all of this extra stuff. And I think this is the perfect example of they're trying to fix a problem that doesn't really exist. If you want to dance, you don't need a camera on your TV to do it.
Most of us, I know you're younger than me, Sean, only by weeks, I'm sure, but not funny. I think we all remember TVs when they weren't flat, and they were big old bulky sons of guns. And I mean, those things, if they fell on your foot, you're going to lose your foot. Yes. Those old things. Thank goodness they're not around. I think I mentioned this before. I went to the aforementioned Samsung that I bought. It was only like a 30-inch screen. I went to Argos to pick this thing up, which is inside Sainsbury's. So I grabbed a trolley to go and pick it up, and I thought I'll need that to take it back to the car. And this young girl who was about 17 who was serving there, she just brought it out and just handed it to me in a box because it doesn't weigh anything.
Yes.
I thought, if you ever want an example of changing times, it's the TV, isn't it?
No, and
it's gone from weighing a ton to weighing nothing.
I think if you still have some of those old monitors, they're probably worth a decent bit of money now, especially the old CRT monitors, cathode ray tubes.
Yeah.
Gamers really like those because they get that sort of original gaming experience from like the 90s. So if you've got one of those monitors that you can plug into.
So Pac-Man on one of those is like the ultimate kind of, I get that. This is an interesting one because one of the criticisms of iPhones, from many people, there's people who just pathologically don't like Apple and those who pathologically don't like Samsung. I'm always a bit suspicious of the people that go, I don't like Apple. It's like a bit like not liking a Porsche or you know what I mean? It just seems a very odd, peculiar thing to have.
I think it's that bias of when you've spent money on your product, you want to believe that your product is the best in the world. So you have people who buy iPhones and they think resolutely it's the best thing ever, and you'll have people that buy Androids that think that you don't want to buy your product and think, oh, actually that one's better. So
but
you've got to back your product.
Factually, Apples are better. I mean, it's just as simple as that. They are slicker. They look.
I'm nervous to get involved with this.
Because you're a architecture. Yeah, but when I see people with an Android, some old, I've got a new Samsung Galaxy, right? Firstly, I don't like the name, so there's that, the Galaxy bit, what's going on there. Secondly, it's like I look at the apps and then I look at like Apple apps and I just think that's the proper thing. It's a bit like, Disney do, or Pixar do, proper cartoons. And then every now and again they go, oh, this is a new animation by a couple of British designers from Middlesbrough. And you work it and you go, I don't want to watch that. It's like my kids scribbled it.
Yes.
I want the real deal. So I get it from... But the point I was going to make, Sean, to bring it to this story, was people often also complain about the price. Mm-hmm. However, no matter how expensive a product might be, those that want a product will still queue for it. And so I was quite surprised. The iPhone 17 Pro Max, which is their most expensive model, particularly if you go for 2 terabytes or whatever, there's actually a bit of a waiting list almost.
People are going mad for this phone, and I feel very privileged that it's the phone that I'm using. And it's actually this colour, so it's the cosmic orange colour that people are going particularly mad for. But if you want this phone, there's a 2-week wait now at Apple. And if you want the 512GB storage option, which is a tier up from the base level, there's a 3-week wait. And if you go on retailers, you go on Argos, Currys, it's sold out pretty much. Oh, I've turned my flash on. It's sold out pretty much everywhere. So very hard to get. And it's interesting because
they've had a Pro Max model for years now.
I think there are a couple of things. I think one of them is the fact that they got rid of the Plus model from the sort of entry-level range, which is the one with the bigger screen. So this is the only way now to get a very big screen on the new lot of iPhones. I think the fact that there's this bright new orange colour is pretty exciting.
That was a risk, I would say.
It was, and
it's one that's paid
people
off.
are really liking it. And then also the top of the back of the phone looks different than the previous models, and I think it's that sort of thing of people can clearly see that you've upgraded to the new model, and it's sort of that, look at me, it's a bit of a flex on the street. And so I think that's what will be driving it too, because some previous years, sometimes you upgrade, it doesn't necessarily look much different than previous models. This year it looks very different, and I think that's driving.
I've got two mates who are in love, who've got the orange. Finn, our producer, thinks it's almost sexual. He's so attracted to the orange. Yeah, he loves it. Hasn't got one.
You can touch it later.
What did you ask me a second ago? Is what? Is the back you mean this bit of the back? It says, is the bottom bit different for a reason?
Yeah, so this bit is slightly different as well. They've changed the material of the phone. So this is a different material.
It's your mag
area. It allows the MagSafe to go through. And then the top, this camera bump is extended all the way across as well.
Yeah.
So it does look different, and it's, I think, quite pretty.
Did you say there was a Plus model before?
So there used to be a Plus model for the... So last year there was the iPhone 16 and then the iPhone 16 Plus, which were like a pair of base models. But this year they got rid of that bigger Plus one. So this is the only way to get the big screen.
Right.
And this year they replaced it with the iPhone Air, which is that super thin one.
Yep.
But that is not sold out. You can go to the stores today and buy one pretty much anywhere.
They're quite amazing, though, to pick one up.
They're very interesting as a concept. But I think really what you're doing with that phone is you're looking at half of the foldable phone that's going to come out in next year or the year
That's
after.
very true. That's very true. Couple of quick ones here. More than half of people use AI as a financial advisor. I'm not surprised at that.
No, I'm not surprised. It's a particularly unsurprising story. In fact, this is research from Lloyds Bank, and they're saying that 56% of people are using it for financial advice. And the obvious warning is that you shouldn't necessarily be using it solely for financial advice.
Yes.
Banks and investment companies are very strictly regulated on the advice that they can give, especially in terms of the investments you can make. ChatGPT, Google Gemini, they don't have those same restrictions. So if you go on and chat to it about financial advice, it will tell you where to invest, what stocks to buy. So you need to be very wary of that advice. I think probably where it is quite good is sort of maybe opening your eyes to financial arrangements that maybe you weren't aware of. But I would say before you invest or do anything with your money, go and actually speak to your bank. So you find to use it as a research tool, but don't just point blank follow its advice. And also, I would also say, speak in very general terms to the AI. Don't give away personal. Don't say this is me, this is my bank details, this is the job I do my salary.
Don't be doing that kind of stuff. Not with AI.
In broad terms. I have a friend who maybe is doing.
That's probably the best way. And vibe coding. This is a new word that is the word of the year in the new Collins Dictionary. I was reading about this morning because I wasn't sure what vibe coding was, and I looked it up, and now I've completely forgotten. Tell us, Sean.
Ironically, vibe coding is actually 2 words, but it is word of the year, so that's its own sort of puzzle. But it's basically sort of going with the vibes when creating apps and websites and games, and basically using an AI and describing the app that you want, and then it codes it for you. So previously, in the ancient history, you would have to learn programming languages to create your own app. Now you can just sort of chat to an AI. And actually, I got to see this in real life. when I went to Meta last month, and they were basically showing me this software where they could create a game in real time just by chatting to an AI assistant, and it would bring up the models and the landscape and the baddies and the voice acting. It was all generated by AI.
Yeah.
There was no coding happening. You were just describing it to the AI. And
I mean, it's quite frightening. A friend of mine started like a clothing thing online.
It's getting very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, and he did it aimed at women, and he got AI to come up with the name, the website, design the whole thing, sort out the best financial, everything just sort of through AI.
I hope he's paying the AI a salary for all that work.
But I mean, it's bizarre, isn't it, that you can do this kind of stuff? I mean, I know we get blown away by it, but it is still new, and that perhaps the more frightening stat is that this is, as we said the other day, this is like week 1 of AI. So it just started.
It's nice that it democratizes that ability for people to make their own businesses from home. I think what's probably more interesting is how these companies are actually going to make money from letting people use all these AI services. So much of it you can just do for free.
Well, if you're working coding and software and designing apps and websites and stuff, you're probably at that stage where you're thinking, is there any point?
Yeah, and what I will say is it's still at the point where it's not. You can't totally rely on it for extremely complicated software. People at Meta and Amazon, won't be totally using it. But for someone at home who wants to create a fun program, go right ahead.
Listen, Sean, we're out of time. Thank you,
Brilliant.
as ever, Sean Keach, who is, of course, Head of Science and Tech over there at The Sun. Thank you to him. More from you. Peter Cardwell joins us as well. Just gone 10 to 4. This is Talk.
I mean, honestly, Pete, a manhunt, the prison service, tell me some sense, please.
David Lammy, hereafter known as the Monopoly Minister, because everybody receives a get-out-of-jail-free card. Really appalling, particularly with the Algerian prisoner. The police were not notified for 6 days. So he had a proper head start on the police, and quite simply, he could be anywhere on the globe right now.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On the app. On your mobile. The home of common sense. This is Talk.
Yes, it is. Let's go back to your calls. Rudy in Bristol on EVs. Rudy, what have you got for us, mate?
Well, I think it's all part of the plan with the digital ID, because they want to track your mileage, because then they can link it to net zero, and then they can say, well, you've had these amount of miles per day, per week, per month, so we're going to restrict you on it.
Yeah, but you're in an electric car, aren't you? So you're not polluting anything.
Well, you are, because you're charging on the energy grid.
So you use it, that's true. You're doing that, but you're not, my point is, you're not gunking out, loads of old fumes from an oil-based car.
But you're still causing the energy grid, and everything eventually will be electric car. So this is the way they will be able to restrict to you. The same with flights and everything else. They say, right, you've done
your miles this week. You've done your too many miles. Yeah, you've wasted too many. Yeah, we know that it wasn't essential because we know your car was at the cinema. We know your car was at the chip shop. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, but also this is the obsession with Ed Miliband, you see.
Yeah.
This net zero that's going to make no difference to the environment.
Saving the world, Rudy. Stop being so cynical. Take your tinfoil hat off. Ed Miliband is saving us.
You better speak to China and India and America then, because
he's saving them as well.
People,
yeah.
Well, he's not, obviously, And this is what it's all about. It's just so fishy. This has all come in with the digital ID and everything else. It's all part of the little by little and getting you in, a bit like when we joined the EU just for business, and then over a period of time
so it's the kind of atomic kind of movements towards something bigger. Rudy, thank you very much indeed. I know it's a theory out there, not one I concur with, but I get what Rudy's saying, because even if it's not conspiratorial, it will, life will track you more and more. That's just a fact.
Just because you're cynical doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong.
That's a very good point.
You mentioned
it's like sitting here with Socrates when Peter comes in.
I've read all his books. The thing with Ed Miliband is I always think it was brother David Miliband, the only person who ever left politics to spend less time with his family.
Yes, that's very true. He did, didn't he? Yes. So he moved to another country.
Yep.
I love it. What's happening after 4? Peter?
Well, we're going live to Birmingham to talk about these protesters saying Zionists not welcome. This really controversial football match is happening. Horrendous anti-Semitism there. Lammy still on the ropes. This prisoner still at large, although one of them came back and it was filmed, and we'll see what's going on there.